ほら、ルフィ、今一緒に海賊になる仲間を探してるんだ。
Hello guys, welcome to my channel The Wandering Zoro, your go-to destination for anime-related content. And if you're new here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss out on our latest videos. In today's video, we're going to be diving into part 2 of the series. So be sure to stick around until the end, and let's get started. Izuku barely had time to breathe before All Might was on him again. The golden tuxedo blurred into a streak of muscle and fury, every step cracking the ground. Izuku actually yelped, then instant transmitted 10 meters to the left as a fist the size of a boulder cratered the floor where his ribs had been. Boom! Shards of concrete blasted past his cape. Students screamed. Aizawa cursed. Nana covered her mouth in horror. Izuku reappeared mid-air, twisting like a startled cat. "Dude, calm down," he shouted. All Might didn't. He spun, eyes burning, and launched again. Izuku transmitted behind him. All Might pivoted instantly and threw a kick. Izuku transmitted again. All Might stomped the ground and sent a shockwave that nearly flipped Izuku into the ceiling. This was a fight. This was a relentless beatdown by a man who genuinely believed Izuku was his archenemy. Izuku tried fighting back. He had to. He used repulsion rings to deflect a punch. He fired a dragon fist blast at All Might's side. He planted a blunt force hit directly into All Might's ribs. And the symbol of peace actually slid back a few feet. Just a few, but enough to widen Izuku's eyes behind his broken visor. Holy dude's made of iron. All Might wiped the dust from his jaw and glared. "You have stolen countless lives and abilities. All for one, and I will not allow you to harm my students." Izuku wanted to scream, not because of the accusation, but because All Might's face held genuine conviction. There was no doubt, no hesitation, no recognition. Izuku transmitted behind him again and threw a blunt force punch at All Might's spine, only to watch the hero twist around mid-impact, blocking with his forearm like Izuku was throwing pillows instead of a compressed shockwave enhanced by stolen strength. Boom! Izuku flew backward this time, skidding across the ground. "God damn it," he hissed, shaking his aching arm. He tanked that like it was nothing. His bones were already healing, but the pain lingered. All Might stomped toward him, fists trembling with the urge to end this. Izuku swallowed. He hated to admit it, he hated it more than anything. But All Might wasn't the number one hero for nothing. He was fast. He was strong. He was relentless. And Izuku felt the reality settling in like a lead weight. Without Noma's thick skin and stacked strength quirks, he'd already be dead. He fired an impure beam. All Might dodged it. Izuku transmitted above him and unleashed a downward blunt force strike. All Might caught it with one hand. "Eff it. Give up," All Might growled. "You cannot win." Izuku gritted his teeth, teleporting away before All Might crushed his wrist. "I'm not trying to win, idiot. I'm trying not to die." All Might didn't listen. He lunged again, and Izuku realized the worst part. He didn't want to fight his stepfather. But All Might wanted him dead. Izuku's breath hitched. He didn't know if he could hold out much longer. All Might didn't need a full opening. He needed a fraction. And Izuku, exhausted, thrown around, overwhelmed, gave him exactly that. All Might's hand clamped around Izuku's face like a vice. Before Izuku could even gasp, he was lifted clean off the ground. Then, slam! All Might pile-drived him into the concrete, so hard the floor split like a cracked eggshell. Izuku's ears rang. His vision blurred. The impact forced the air out of his lungs in a strangled wheeze. He tried to transmit instinctively, desperately, but his brain was scrambled. All Might didn't stop. He pressed down harder, crushing Izuku's head deeper into the crater with terrifying, overwhelming strength. Izuku's chest seized. Real panic hit him like electricity. When was the last time he felt this helpless? Felt like no matter how many quirks he had, how strong he got, he still wasn't enough? Since that night, the night he ran away. "No," Izuku rasped. No, get off." All Might didn't listen. He raised a fist. Izuku screamed, eyes glowing bright green. Eye laser. The beam shot straight into All Might's shoulder, burning clean through the tuck's fabric and barely making the man flinch. It only pissed him off more. He slammed Izuku's head back down again. Wham! And this time grabbed Izuku's right arm. Izuku realized what was coming too late. Don't! Crack! His arm snapped like a twig, bending at a sick, wrong angle. Izuku's scream ripped out his throat raw, broken, panicked. Aizawa, bleeding, barely able to stay upright, saw it all. Something in him snapped. His eyes burned red. His quirk firing on pure willpower alone. All Might, that's enough. He roared, voice cracking with fury. The strength left All Might's body in an instant. Muscles deflated. Posture sagged. His arm froze mid-swing. His true skeletal form flickered through like a glitch. He looked up at Aizawa, shocked, betrayed, confused. But Aizawa didn't care. He glared with every ounce of life left in him. You're hurting a kid, he rasped. A student. A boy. A boy you almost killed. All Might stared at the vigilante, lying broken in the crater. The boy he was seconds away from splattering. Izuku didn't move. He was out cold, chest twitching with every pain breath. His broken arm hung limply. Vital fluid dripped from his mouth. His face, normally hidden behind a visor, was visible to everyone. And some of the students gasped. Nana froze. Bakugo's eyes went wide. Because they recognized him. The doors to USJ slammed open, and the rest of the UA staff poured inside. Cementos, Midnight, Present Mike, Vlad King, even Nizu. What the hell is that? Aizawa, report. Aizawa collapsed forward, barely catching himself. That's Izuku, he whispered hoarsely. Izuku. Yagi. Silence hit the dome like a shockwave. All Might's face went pale. But the damage? It was already done. And Izuku, broken, bleeding, unconscious, had no idea his face was uncovered. No idea that his secret was gone. No idea the entire world was about to change. Transition. Izuku lay in a hospital bed like a ghost someone dragged back into the world. His entire right arm was in a brace. Half his ribs were taped. A neural monitor stuck to his temple blinked in steady rhythm. Quirk suppression cuffs locked both wrists to the bed rails, thick enough to restrain a mid-tier villain. It would have looked intimidating if he wasn't so small and still under all the blankets. Just a scarred, exhausted kid sleeping through painkillers and trauma. Outside the glass panel of the room, Nizu stood on a little stool, paws folded neatly behind his back. Detective Naomasa stood beside him, hands buried in his pockets, steaming cup of cheap hospital coffee forgotten. They watched the boy. They watched the vigilante. They watched the child the world thought died a year ago. Neither spoke at first. Naomasa finally exhaled. Aizawa wasn't exaggerating. That's him. Nizu nodded once. Izuku Yagi, or, as he apparently prefers, Izuku Shimura. Naomasa rubbed his face. Kid's life went to hell and back. And he hid it all from us. He didn't hide. Nizu corrected softly. He adapted. He survived. There's a difference. They both looked through the glass. The boy's chest rose and fell, slow and steady. Super regeneration was working overtime under suppression, keeping him stable, but not fully healing him. Naomasa continued, voice low. Aizawa told me everything from their reunion. Kid's been operating alone for a year, taking out traffickers, hostage rings, black markets. Half the underworld won't operate after sundown because of him. Nizu hummed. And the other half is considering early retirement. There is no humor in it, just truth. And All Might. Naomasa muttered, jaw tightening. We'll have to deal with that fallout. The punch was meant to kill. There's no way to spin that. Nizu didn't flinch. He believed he was facing all for one himself. His reaction was predictable. Predictable doesn't make it acceptable. No, Nizu agreed quietly. But it does make it understandable. They watched Izuku's fingers twitch weakly against the restraints. He's just a kid, Naomasa said. 13 when he vanished. 14 now. His parents barely filed anything. Didn't even push for searches. They moved on. Nizu's whiskers twitched. Quickly. It wasn't judgment. It was an observation. A disturbing one. Naomesa's voice softened, something pained slipping through. Aizawa's furious. He already filled out guardianship forms. Says he's not letting Izuku go back there. Nizu smiled faintly. Shota always did have a soft spot for lost strays. Naomesa snorted. This one bites back. Even better, Nizu replied. He'll fit right in. A long silence followed. The detective then asked the question that weighed on both of them. What do we do with him now? Nizu didn't answer immediately. His eyes bright, calculating, almost too intelligent, studied the unconscious boy with unnerving gentleness. Japan doesn't need another all-for-one, Nizu said, but it could certainly use a second chance. Naomesa raised a brow. Meaning? Nizu hopped off his stool, tail swishing as he paced slowly. We give him options. Structure. A future. Not chains. He glanced back up. He's a vigilante, yes. He's stolen quirks, yes. He spilled vital fluid, yes. Naomesa's jaw tensed. But he saved Aizawa. Nizu continued. Saved students. Prevented a massacre. And every quirk he's stolen belonged to criminals, killers, traffickers, abusers, not a single innocent. Not one. Intent matters, Naomesa murmured. It always has. They looked through the glass one more time. Izuku mumbled something in his sleep, brow scrunching, like a child reliving nightmares. He deserves a chance to stop running, Nizu said. And to stop fighting alone, Naomesa added. Nizu nodded. So, he concluded, once he wakes up, we make him an offer. Naomesa exhaled. Yue? Yue, Nizu confirmed. Not as a student. Not yet. But under Aizawa's custody. Under supervision. Under guidance. If the boy accepts. And if he doesn't? Nizu turned, eyes glowing with something sharp and bright. Then we make sure he lives long enough to decide again. The two men stared at the sleeping vigilante. The runaway child who dismantled crime rings, who fought a Nomu alone, who survived All Might's killing blow. Izuku Yagi. Izuku Shimura. Foe all for one. Whatever name he chose next, Japan wouldn't be ready for him. Not even close. Transition. Tomura hit the bar floor knees first the moment the warp spat him out, fingers clawing at his neck in furious, broken scratches. Kurojiri steadied himself beside him, his mist crackling unstable from stress. The hideout was dim, lit only by the neon bar sign flickering through the shutters. Empty bottles lay scattered on tables nobody sat at. The whole place smelled of smoke and damp wood. Before Tomura could scream, rant, or smash something. Click! A monitor behind the counter switched on by itself. No video, just a black screen with a pulsing line. And a voice. Calm, even, cultured. Good evening, Tomura. Kurojiri. I trust you've returned? Tomura's scratches faltered. Kurojiri straightened automatically. Sensei. Kurojiri bowed his head. We have returned. His voice dripped through the speakers with unsettling politeness. Tell me, how did our little field test go? Is All Might dead? Is the Nomu intact? Tomura flinched so hard he almost tore a chunk out of his neck. Kurojiri answered first, because Tomura absolutely could not. All Might survived, Sensei. The students as well. Eraserhead was severely injured. 13 was incapacitated. But the Nomu, his mist pulsed with shame. Nomu was destroyed. A pause. Not long. Not loud. But heavy. I see, the voice replied softly. Destroyed by All Might? Tomura's teeth clenched so tight a crack sounded. No, he snapped. Not by that fraud. Not by that poser. It was. His voice cracked into something like a scream and a whine fused together. It was him. The vigilante. That stupid kid with the blue hair. He stole its quirks, Sensei. Like just grabbed them and. He couldn't finish. His hands shook too violently. His pride wouldn't let him say the rest. The voice, disturbingly calm, hummed. The vigilante, he repeated. Yes. Foe all for one, they call him, don't they? Tomura froze. You knew. He hissed. A quiet chuckle came through the speaker light. Entertained, almost delighted. Of course I knew. I simply did not know he would appear today. A beat. And I am mildly surprised he dispatched Nomu so efficiently. It seems the child has been busy. Busy was an understatement. Noma was supposed to be Tamura's invincible statement, his triumph. His symbol now was an empty corpse in Yue's custody. Kurogiri bowed again. Tamura shook harder. Sensei continued, tone growing razor smooth. Do not be discouraged, Tamura. A single setback does not end a war. There will be other opportunities. More Nomo. More plans. The voice lowered, soft enough to feel like a hand on Tamura's back. And more chances to kill All Might. Tamura's shaking stopped. He looked up at the speaker, eyes red, wide, furious, but steadied by that promise. The voice added almost playfully, and as for our young vigilante, I find myself curious. Tamura tensed. Curious, Sensei? Yes, very curious. A pause. Let's keep an eye on him. The monitor clicked off. Silence swallowed the bar. Kurogiri stood stiff and quiet, processing the orders. Tamura finally exhaled, rage twisting into a grin, ugly, shaking, but real. Fine, he muttered. Let's see how long that brat lasts. But even as he said it, there was fear in him, because Noma didn't just lose. Noma was taken apart, piece by piece, quirk by quirk, and Tamura knew, deep down, what Kurogiri sensed too. All for One wasn't just a vigilante. He was something worse. Someone All Might himself had tried and failed to kill. And someone Sensei had just taken interest in. The room was dim and quiet, lit only by the soft glow of a heart monitor and the faint hum of fluorescent lights. Izuku lay strapped to the bed, arms trembling, breath shaking violently as panic crashed over him like a wave he couldn't swim through. His vision was blurry. His chest hurt. And worst of all, he couldn't feel any of his quirks. No eye laser. No shield. No regeneration. Nothing. It was like losing all his limbs at once. A strangled wheeze escaped his throat. The panic attack hit hard and fast. Hyperventilation, shaking, the horrible sensation of drowning without water. He pulled weakly at the cuffs, mind racing in terrified spirals. Then, click, the door opened. Aizawa, wrapped head to toe in bandages, arm pulled in a sling, barely looking alive, stepped inside. Izuku's eyes widened. Aizawa softened. Without a word, Aizawa shuffled over, sat on the edge of the bed, and lightly placed a cool, folded bandage against Izuku's sweat-damp blue hair, an old trick, a grounding trick, one he used for panicking students and traumatized kids he pulled out of hell. Izuku's breath began to slow, not by much, but enough to pull him out of the spiral. Aizawa muttered, voice low and warm, "Breathe, kid. You're safe. Nobody's hurting you here." Izuku swallowed hard, still shaking, still pale, but he forced himself to speak. "Hey, Uncle," his voice cracked embarrassingly. "Long time no see." Aizawa snorted. Actually snorted, trying to act tough while tied to a bed and half-conscious. "Yeah, there's the Izuku I remember." Izuku felt his face warm despite the pain, and for the first time since waking, he managed a tiny smile. Aizawa squeezed his shoulder, gently, careful of wounds, careful of sore spots. "Glad you're awake, kid." Before Izuku could answer, the door swung open again. Detective Naomasa stepped in, older-looking, tired, coat draped around his shoulders. He froze for half a second when he saw Izuku awake, eyes widening with pure relief. "Well," Naomasa breathed, smiling, "look who decided to rejoin the land of the living." Izuku blinked at him in disbelief. "Detective?" Naomasa nodded and walked closer, stopping beside Aizawa. "Been a whole year, Izuku. You gave us all one hell of a scare." Izuku looked down at his restrained hands, throat tightening not from fear this time, but something tangled and messy inside him. He didn't expect this. Not warmth, not concern, not them showing up. After everything that happened, after what he became, it felt unreal. Aizawa leaned back, crossing his arms with a tired sigh. "Kid," he said, "you and I have a lot to talk about." "And so does Naomasa." Naomasa nodded. "But first just breathe. You're not alone anymore. We've got you." Izuku's eyes stung. His chest hurt in a different way now. "Okay," he whispered. Aizawa rested a hand on his shoulder. Naomasa smiled softly. And for the first time in a year, Izuku didn't feel like he was drowning. The door creaked open again, and both Aizawa and Naomasa turned instinctively half, expecting another doctor or a nurse. Instead, a small cane tapped the floor, followed by cheerful humming. Recovery Girl shuffled in first, lips pursed, and cheeks puffed in that permanent "you kids are always hurting yourselves" expression. Right behind her was a creature most people would never expect to meet in a hospital room. Small, round, white-furred, dressed in a neatly pressed vest and tie, with bright button eyes and an unervingly intelligent smile. Principal Nizu. "Good morning," the Chimera announced, waving a paw. "Ah, excellent. You're awake. And still alive. Wonderful news." Izuku blinked at him, completely thrown off by the cheerful, tiny thing hopping closer. Nizu stopped right beside the bed, hands politely folded behind his back. "It truly is a pleasure to meet you, Izuku Yagi, although I suppose Fo All for One is the preferred alias these days." Izuku tensed, breath hitching again. Aizawa's hand gently pressed his shoulder. "Easy. He's not here to attack you." Recovery Girl harumphed and added, "Wouldn't do any good anyway. Boy's got half the regeneration quirks in Japan, if your story's true." Nizu nodded vigorously. "Oh yes, absolutely fascinating. Terrifying, but fascinating." Izuku tried not to sink into the mattress. The principal hopped onto the chair with surprising grace, tail curling behind him like a little ivory question mark. "I must apologize for the restraints," Nizu said, bowing. "Your power set is uniquely problematic. But now that you're awake, lucid, and not attempting to turn the nursing staff into quirk donors, we can discuss your future." Izuku swallowed. "My future?" Nizu smiled like someone opening a present they already knew the contents of. "Indeed. You see, Izuku, your situation presents us with an unprecedented opportunity." Aizawa shot him a warning look. "Nizu, keep it simple." "Oh, of course. Of course." Nizu clasped his paws together. "Izuku, you have 3 potential paths ahead of you, and we'd like to offer them rather than force them." Izuku listened confused, anxious, but curious. Nizu raised one tiny finger. "Option 1. Join UA High School as a student." Izuku stiffened so hard the cuff clinked. Nizu continued cheerfully. "You would be supervised, supported, legally covered, and allowed to train your quirk in a structured environment. It would require awesome adjustments and secrecy, but it is entirely possible." He raised a second finger. "Option 2. Become a licensed vigilante, what we underground professionals call a stealth pro." Aizawa nodded slightly. "You'd work with us," he added, "within rules. Not hunted, not arrested." Nizu nodded so fast his ears wiggled. "Think of it as hero work light. Less paperwork, more dramatic rooftop brooding." Aizawa sighed. "Nizu." Then Nizu raised a third finger. "Option 3. A hybrid track." Izuku blinked. "A what?" "A combination," Nizu explained. "Attend UA part-time academically and socially while working under the Underground Hero Network for field missions and quirk oversight. Half student, half sanctioned vigilante." Naomasa rubbed the back of his neck. "Legally messy as hell," he muttered, "but we can make it work." Nizu beamed. "Messy, yes. Impossible, no." Izuku stared at them, at Aizawa, sitting injured beside him, at Naomasa offering a small, encouraging nod, at Recovery Girl checking his chart, and at the principal smiling like a proud parent. His mind spun. A year ago, he ran away into the rain, thinking no one wanted him. A year later, he's in a hospital bed, being given choices he never imagined he'd have. Nizu took a step closer, tone softening. "You're not a monster, Izuku. You are simply a boy with a rare quirk and a painful past. UA does not judge you for surviving." Aizawa added quietly, "And you don't have to survive alone anymore." Izuku swallowed hard. For the first time, he didn't know what to say. And for the first time, he didn't feel like he had a run. Izuku didn't answer right away. He stared at the ceiling for a long moment, jaw tight, wrist still trembling slightly in the cuffs. Aizawa and Naomasa let him think, and Nizu stood patiently, hands folded behind his back like this was a polite business meeting instead of a conversation with a hospitalized, traumatized, superpowered vigilante teenager. Finally, Izuku swallowed hard. I'll think about it, he whispered. But I got conditions. All three adults tensed just a little. Nizu perked up. Of course. Perfectly reasonable. What are they? Izuku inhaled slowly, the lingering panic in his lungs burning like cold air. First, he said, voice quieter but steadier. I keep using my quirk. All of it. I'm not giving up taking quirks. Aizawa didn't look surprised. Naomasa didn't either. But Nizu's eyes narrowed, not in disapproval, more in calculation. Izuku continued before anyone could respond. I don't abuse it. I don't take from anyone innocent. I never did. But villains? Corrupt pros? Underground trash? I won't stop. I can't. It's the only reason I survived this long. He didn't say, and I like the power. He didn't have to. It hung in the air anyway. Aizawa leaned back in his chair, sighing softly. That's negotiable, he said. Pain in the butt, but negotiable. Nizu clasped his paws together like someone delighted by a new puzzle. Actually, Nizu chimed, we anticipated that request. You see, Izuku, we would much prefer to monitor your quirk use rather than restrict it. And as long as you do not target civilians or licensed heroes, we can work something out. Naomasa nodded firmly. If you stay on the right side of the law, even if it's the very edge of it, we'll defend you. Izuku exhaled, slowly relief flickering through his eyes. Second condition, he said, and his voice dropped into something sharp, something cold. I want no involvement with the Yagis. Aizawa's face softened with sympathy. Naomasa stiffened. He expected this. Nizu's expression didn't change, but his eyes grew thoughtful. Izuku continued. No visits. No reunions. No family meetings. Nothing. I don't want them in my life unless it's an emergency. His hands clenched involuntarily in the cuffs. They made it clear I wasn't part of their family. So I'm not. Silence. Heavy, respectful silence. Aizawa broke it first. Funny you mention that, he said, reaching into his bandaged coat. Because that ties into something we've been preparing. He pulled out a stack of official-looking documents, thick, stamped, bound together with government-grade staples. Izuku blinked. What's that? Aizawa placed the papers on the table beside the bed, adjusting them with a solemn care Izuku wasn't used to seeing from him. Your future, Aizawa said simply. The paperwork for a full, legal adoption. Izuku froze. Aizawa continued, voice low, gentle, and painfully sincere. Naomasa and I talked after you went missing. And again after I found you. I wasn't going to let you go back to them. Ever. You deserve better. He nudged the papers forward. So, Izuku, if you want, you can stop being Izuku Yagi permanently. And become Izuku Aizawa. Izuku's breath caught. His throat tightened painfully. His eyes stung. Nizu smiled, calm and warm. This option has already been approved on our end, Nizu said. The courts wouldn't object, given the Yagi's neglect. All that remains is your signature. Aizawa leaned forward, meeting Izuku's watery stare. No pressure, no rush, but the offer is real, and it's yours. Izuku didn't speak, couldn't speak, but for the second time today, he didn't feel like an orphan. He felt like someone choosing a home. Transition. The Yagi household, usually loud, warm, and overly proud of its hero legacy, sat in an eerie, choking silence. Nozomi Nana Estrella Yagi sat at the dining table with her head down, fingers twitching against the wood. Inko stood near the sink, frozen mid-wash, her knuckles white around a dish towel. Tashinori sat across from his daughter, sunken eyes, jaw clenched, still bruised from his weakened form. None of them touched their food. None of them spoke for several minutes. Because now they knew. Izuku Yagi, the boy they dismissed, neglected, forgot, was alive. And worse, in Tashinori's eyes. He wielded all for one. The very Quirk Tashinori had spent decades fighting. The same power that killed Nana Shimura. The same power he swore to destroy. Finally, Tashinori broke the silence. His voice was low, stiff, and trembling in ways he refused to acknowledge. Nana, I need you to listen carefully. The girl looked up, blue eyes haunted, confused, terrified, and guilty. Yes, Dad? Tashinori swallowed. You now carry one for all. You're the 9th user. His voice steadied unnaturally, as if forced into professionalism. And with that power comes a responsibility. The same one that every user before you accepted. Nana nodded stiffly. He told her this speech 100 times. But she didn't expect what came next. Yume's throat tightened. You may have to face Izuku. Inko gasped softly. Nana's breath caught. He is foe all for one. Tashinori continued. Eyes shadowed. He defeated the Nomo. He faces pro-heroes. His quirk is all for one. The real one, or a variant we don't know. But either way, he inhaled shakily. He is dangerous, and he will only grow stronger. Nana's fingers dug into her thighs. Dad, he's my brother. Tashinori shut his eyes. I know, and I'm sorry, but if he becomes a threat too large for the hero world to contain, the duty of one for all is clear. Nana stared at him, hurt, angry, confused. You're telling me I have to fight him? Izuku, my big brother. Tashinori flinched. He didn't answer directly. He didn't deny it either. Should he choose villainy over justice? Tashinori said quietly, You may have to stop him. Nana's hands trembled, then curled into fists. Her heartbeat thundered in her ears. She remembered Izuku carrying her on his back when she scraped her knee, teaching her how to hold chopsticks, walking her to school, calling her Starshine. But the image of him at USJ, blue hair, glowing eyes, destroying the Nomu, burned just as bright. She stood abruptly, chair scraping. I won't let him hurt anyone. Her voice wavered, but her resolve didn't. I don't want to fight him, but if he really is dangerous, if he's gone too far. She hesitated, tears building. Then I'll do what I have to. I swear it. Tashinori nodded solemnly, pride and pain mixed in his eyes. Inko silently cried. Nana pressed her hand to her chest, feeling one for all spark beneath her skin. The ninth user of one for all, she whispered to herself. Won't let the world fall, even if it means fighting my own brother. Her words hung in the air. A promise neither heroic nor cruel, just inevitable. MidoriIkaru. Izuku sat upright in the hospital bed, flexing his fingers slowly, watching with mild awe as the dull ache in his bones faded bit by bit. Shock absorption and super regeneration had done most of the heavy lifting, but speedy recovery polished off the rest in record time. The cuffs were off. His arms were free. His quirks were back online. And for the first time since USJ, Izuku could actually breathe without feeling like he was suffocating. He stretched his hands, then froze as the door opened. A tall, elegant woman with tied-back blonde hair and sharp eyes stepped into the room. No nonsense. No smile. The president of the Hero Public Safety Commission herself. Izuku stiffened. His instincts screamed danger, not because she was hostile, but because she radiated the exact type of authority that ruined lives without blinking. She approached the bed with the grace of a judge about to sentence someone. Izuku Shimura, she said, or foe all for one, depending on the hour. Izuku didn't respond. His quirks flickered behind his eyes on instinct. Aizawa, sitting in the corner with arms crossed, gave him a look that said, Don't act stupid. The president reached into her coat and slid something onto the tray beside Izuku's bed. A small black case. Metal. Official. Izuku hesitated, then opened it. A provisional hero license. With his new name on it. Izuku Aizawa Shimura. Temporarily registered quirk holder. Multi-type defensive vigilance. Izuku blinked. This is real? The woman nodded once. Nizu called in a considerable debt, she said dryly. The least I could do was authorize special licensing for you. Under supervision, of course. Translation. Nizu owned her. Badly. She continued. Your quirk makes you dangerous. Your history makes you unpredictable. But your results, your discipline, and your restraint make you useful. Izuku narrowed his eyes. Useful, huh? Don't misunderstand, she replied. I'm not praising you. I'm acknowledging reality. You are too powerful to leave unmonitored and too effective to waste. And she actually cracked the smallest, sharpest half-smile. And frankly, young man, half the underworld is terrified of you. That's impressive. Izuku flushed, not sure if he should be proud or insulted. She turned toward the door. Use your license wisely. Do not embarrass the commission or Nizu. Otherwise, this arrangement becomes very temporary. And with that, she was gone like a storm passing through. Izuku exhaled shakily. Aizawa pushed off the wall, walking over to the bed. He looked healthier, much healthier. The sling was gone, most of his bandages removed, and his posture more stable. Izuku blinked. You look good. Aizawa smirked faintly. You gave me speedy recovery, remember? It'd be rude to waste it. Izuku rubbed the back of his head. Right, sorry about that, by the way. Didn't mean to knock you out. You didn't, Aizawa said. Your stepfather did. Izuku groaned into his hands. Can we not talk about him today? Aizawa shrugged. Fine by me. He tossed Izuku a folded set of familiar clothes cleaned, repaired, neatly stacked. When you get dressed, Nizu wants to finalize a few things. And since you're officially cleared by Recovery Girl, you're free to go. Izuku blinked. Go where? Aizawa snorted. Home. Izuku's heart stuttered. Home. Mine, Aizawa clarified, rolling his eyes. Who else's? Classes start again Monday. And since you're part-time hero, part-time student, part-time problem. Hey, you'll need an adult around who can keep you from blowing up city blocks. Izuku slumped back onto the bed. That was one time. You leveled a warehouse, Izuku. It was abandoned. Aizawa only raised an eyebrow. Izuku sighed in defeat, but a tiny hint of warmth bloomed in his chest. A new home, a new name, a license, a future. It felt unreal. He slid the license into his pocket and whispered to himself, Guess I'm really doing this. Aizawa tousled his hair. Welcome to UA, kid. Try not to stress me out too much. Izuku grinned. No promises. Transition. Izuku barely had time to finish looking at the tiny kitchenette before the front door slammed open hard enough to rattle the shoe rack. Izuku. Two voices, one bubbly, one smooth, and deadly rang out at the exact same time. Izuku didn't even turn around before. Wham! Himiko Toga slammed into him full force, arms wrapped around his waist, legs kicking behind her like an overexcited cat that had been deprived of its human for a week. She buried her face in his chest and started sniffing him aggressively. You idiot. You absolute dummy. You almost died. She yelled into his shirt, her voice wobbling hard. Do you know how scared I was? I almost killed a nurse to see you. Izuku laughed nervously, patting her head as she clung to him like a tick. Hey, Toga. Calm down, please don't kill any medical staff. He didn't get to finish, because Kana Tsutsumi Lady Nagant herself stepped in quietly behind Toga and then pulled Izuku in her hug from the other side. A slow, tight, relieved hug. You scared the hell out of us, kid, she muttered into his shoulder. You were out for 2 days. 2 days. Do you know how long that is when you care about someone like a stupid little demon fox? Izuku's face turned bright red between both of them. I didn't mean to. Alma just kind of punched my soul out of my body. Not helping. Himiko screamed at him, squeezing tighter. Kana just bonked him gently with her forehead. Then she noticed the space around them, the small hallway, the coat stand, the shoe rack, and the faint smell of tea and cats that naturally clung to Aizawa's apartments. So, she said casually, leaning back and crossing her arms, This is where you're living now. Huh? With the eraser head? Izuku rubbed his neck. Yeah, he adopted me. Himiko gasped so loud it echoed. You're my boyfriend, Aizawa now. She grabbed his collar and shook him like he was announcing a surprise wedding. Aizu baby, you're so cool. Kana just smiled small, but genuine. About time someone gave you a proper home. Izuku felt his chest warm at that. Then, Aizawa stepped around the corner holding a pack of bandages and stopped dead when he saw all 3 of them in a pile. He blinked. Why is there a cuddle org in my hallway? Himiko popped her head up. Because we love him. Kana nodded. And he's ours. Izuku nearly evaporated on the spot. Aizawa sighed the legendary exhausted sigh of a man who knew, deep down, this was his life now. Rules, he muttered. We're going to need rules. Himiko beamed. Rule number 1. I get the left side of Izuku when we sleep. Kana raised a brow. Bold of you to assume I'm giving up the left. Aizawa rubbed his temples. That is not what I meant. Izuku, still sandwiched between them, finally let out a laugh, small, soft, genuine. For the first time in years, he felt home. Transition. Izuku slept like a rock, one arm wrapped under Himiko's waist, Kana's leg thrown over his, all three of them tangled in a pile that would have made Aizawa question every life decision he has ever made. But Izuku didn't dream of warmth or cuddles or quiet. He dropped straight into the mindscape. A vast black void. No floor, no sky. Just an endless cosmos scattered with floating stars. Every star a stolen quirk. Every flicker a personality echo. Every constellation shaped by his choices. Izuku stood there barefoot, breathing slow, eyes adjusting to the glowing clusters. He'd been here a dozen times before, enough to walk through it like a second home. From behind him, a familiar figure spoke. "So, you return again, little thief." Izuku didn't flinch. He turned casually. The vestige of his quirk, the AFO variant, living inside him, floated just above the ground like a shadow, wearing Izuku's own silhouette. Only taller, sharper, its eyes glowing faint green like dying embers. "Yeah," Izuku said, stretching his shoulders. "Kinda had a lot going on. All Might punching me so hard I saw Jesus wasn't on my schedule." The vestige smirked. "You survived. Barely. But you survived because you're stubborn and because my power refuses to let you die easily." Izuku shrugged. "I'll take the compliment." The vestige drifted forward, glancing around at the drifting quirk stars. "You have expanded your collection since last time. You say that like I'm hoarding trading cards. Aren't you?" Izuku grinned. "Maybe." Then the vestige's expression shifted, serious now. He gestured toward a region of the mindscape Izuku rarely looked at. A cluster of lights hovered there. The familiar stolen stars floated around him, repulsion rings, dragon fist, grapple, strength boosts. But this new cluster, it was different. A solar system, a glowing white star in the center. Orbiting it were 6 smaller stars, each distinct, each familiar in a way Izuku couldn't explain. And the 6th one? Pink, warm, soft, like a heartbeat. Izuku frowned. "That's grown closer since last time." "Yes," the vestige murmured. "It is drawing nearer to you. Faster than before." Izuku stepped closer. The gravity in this place felt real, the pull of the white core humming against his skin. "That's one for all," he said quietly. The vestige floated beside him, hands behind his back. "It is the legacy of 7 users so far. Each one embedded their own quirk within its core. One by one, shaping that white star in the center." His voice lowered. "And you're tied to it. By blood, by fate, by proximity." Izuku swallowed. "My grandmother, Nana Shimura." The vestige nodded once. "A faint connection, but a real one. One for all recognizes lineage. Your DNA carries her echo. That's why its presence is drifting closer to your mindscape." Izuku stared at the constellation in silence. "Does that mean it's trying to merge with me?" "Not yet," the vestige said. "But sees you." Izuku's chest tightened. "And what does it want?" The vestige gave him a side glance. "What all power wants. A successor." Izuku's stomach dropped. "Nana has it now," he muttered. "My sister. She inherited it. She's the 9th. "Yes," the vestige said. "But one for all is not a passive power. It observes. It judges. It chooses." Izuku's eye twitched. "I don't like where this is going." The vestige chuckled a low, rasping sound. "Relax, little thief. It hasn't decided anything. But the connection is real. You can feel it, can't you?" Izuku hesitated. "I felt something during USJ. Like someone watching." "That was them," the vestige murmured, nodding toward the stars. "The echoes of the previous users. The other half of your inheritance." Izuku exhaled shakily. "So OFA is watching me, judging me, and my sister might have to fight me. And All Might wants me dead. Great. Fantastic. Just what I needed." The vestige snorted. "You thrive under pressure. You always have." Izuku ran a hand through his blue hair, thinking, if one for all gets too close, what happens? The vestige's answer was simple. Collision. Izuku stared at him. Of quirks? Of destinies. Izuku sat on nothing, on air, legs dangling. Well, that sounds like a nightmare. The vestige floated above him, shadows flickering. You're something new, Izuku. Not all for one. Not one for all. Something in between. Something evolving. Izuku didn't respond. He just watched the white star. The power his father wanted to give to Nana. Draw slowly, slowly closer. His vestige whispered, "Sooner or later, you two will meet." Izuku exhaled hard. "Guess I'll deal with that when it happens." The stars pulsed in response. And somewhere in the real world, between two warm bodies curled around him, Izuku stirred in his sleep, as the universe inside him shifted another inch closer. Transition. Aizawa stood at the podium like a scarecrow that had given up on life but was still legally obligated to teach. The class was buzzing half from nerves, half from gossip about the USJ incident. Everyone was still spooked, still on edge, still waiting for another shoe to drop. Aizawa cleared his throat. The room fell silent. "We have a new student transferring into the hero course," he said in the driest tone human anatomy could produce. "Try not to scare him off. We're due." "I don't care." A few students' sweat dropped. Mina whispered, "He totally cares." Kaminari nodded like he had insider info he absolutely did not have. Aizawa continued, "He'll be part of Class 1A. Treat him with respect. If you don't, I'll expel you." Everyone sat straighter. Then Aizawa turned toward the door. "Shimura, Aizawa. Come in." The door slid open, and Izuku walked in. Blue hair neat but fluffed. Red eyes calm but bright. A small bandage on his cheek. UA uniform. Pristine. His posture relaxed but respectful. He looked nothing like the kid who vanished a year ago, yet everything like the boy some of them remembered. He bowed politely. "Good morning. My name is Izuku Shimura, Aizawa. I'm happy to join Class 1A, and I look forward to learning with everyone." The class murmured whispers, rising like static. "Shimura? Wait, Aizawa's kid? He looks kind of cool, actually. Is he foreign? What's with the hair?" But two voices didn't whisper. Bakugo froze mid-breath, eyes bulging. Nana stared like she'd seen a ghost. Her pencil rolled off her desk and hit the floor. Izuku glanced toward them with a small, warm smile. Bakugo's jaw clenched. Nana's heart stopped, and Aizawa, stone-faced as ever, hid the smallest, proudest smile behind his scarf as he said, "All right, that's enough staring. Shimura Aizawa, sit wherever you want. Class is starting." The beginning had arrived. Lunch at UA hit different. Izuku sat at one of the far tables, scarf off, visor tucked away, sleeves rolled up, and a literal mountain of food in front of him. Katsudon, miso soup, rice, carriage, and entire protein tax returns spread across a tray. Vigilante metabolism was no joke. He had just taken his first heavenly bite when a shadow passed over him. Then another. Then 5 more. Can we sit here?" Kirishima asked, already halfway, pulling out a chair like he didn't actually need an answer. Izuku blinked, swallowed, and nodded. "Sure." And suddenly the table became the unofficial Izuku Curiosity Zone. Kirishima grinned. "Man, you eat more than Sato and Shoji combined." Zero leaned forward. "So you transferred in randomly? That's kind of wild." Mina sparkled. "Your hair is gorgeous. Is it dyed? Natural? Quirk thing? Style choice? I need the lore." Tokoyami bowed politely. "Your presence carries an interesting aura. A calm storm. I approve." Ochako tilted her head, gentle but curious. "Shimura Aizawa. So, you're adopted? Or?" Dinky pointed at him. "Dude, your eyes. They're like super cool. You look like an anime prodag." Izuku had expected this. Aizawa warned him. "Kids are nosy. Brace yourself." He set down his chopsticks and smiled. "Okay, rapid-fire answers so everyone gets something," he said. They leaned in. 1. Yes, my appetite's always like this. Sorry in advance for future lunch stampedes. 2. Transferring wasn't random, but it was last minute. Complicated stuff. 3. My hair's natural, no dye. Well, mostly natural. 4. Yeah, Aizawa adopted me. Recently. 5. Think about the eyes. I can't really control them, though. A chorus of oh and whoa spread around the table. Mina put both hands on her cheeks. "You're like a cool stray cat he found and took home." Izuku coughed on his rice. Kirishima slapped the table. "Man, you gotta train with me sometime. You feel like you're hiding muscles." Tokoyami nodded sagely. "And shadows." Izuku's sweat dropped. "I promise I'm not that mysterious. I'm just trying to fit in." Ochako smiled warmly. Well, we're really glad you're here. Izuku's chest tightened, not in a painful way, but in a way he hadn't felt in years. Accepted. Welcomed. Normal. He took another bite of katsudan to hide the tiny blush he'd never admit to. Across the cafeteria, Bakugo watched silently, jaw clenched. And at another table, Nana stared at him with an expression no one could quite read: hurt, longing, confusion, all tangled into one. But Izuku didn't notice. However, Izuku knew it was coming the moment Mina leaned in with that look, the "so what's your quirk?" look. He'd hoped lunch would buy him a little more time. But no, the universe refused him that luxury. He set his chopsticks down with the slow dread of a man defusing a bomb. Kirishima nudged him. Yo, it's cool if you don't want to say. No, Izuku said, cutting him off gently. It's okay. I kind of need to tell you guys anyway. Aizawa had gone over this with him the night before. You either control the narrative or it'll be ripped out of your hands. Better they hear it from you. Izuku took a breath. My quirk is called All for One. Silence fell around the table like someone hit the cafeteria mute button. Denki blinked. That's a badass name. Mina tilted her head. Never heard of it before. Zero shrugged. Sounds like the opposite of one for all. Kind of funny, actually. Izuku nodded stiffly. Yeah, people say that a lot. He lifted one hand off the table, palm facing up. A small, dark hole sat in the center like a quiet little black hole, just waiting. Some students leaned back. Some leaned closer. This, Izuku said, is how my quirk works. A gentle swirl of green energy flickered around his fingers as if demonstrating without actually using it. All for One lets me take quirks from people I touch and use them, or give them to someone else. There was a beat of stunned silence. Ochako's eyes widened. Well, you could take them? Like permanently? Izuku avoided her eyes. If I choose to. Yeah, Tokoyami murmured. A power of kings, or tyrants. Mina whispered. Holy, so you're like really strong? Izuku forced a tiny smile. I manage, but I only take from willing donors. He tossed that out casually. Kirishima nodded approvingly. That's actually super manly. Denki snorted. Bro, if I had your quirk and someone said, willing donor, I'd assume they got knocked out first. Izuku coughed loudly into his katsudan. Mina smirked knowingly. Sure, willing. He tried to redirect before the teasing killed him. I only keep a few at a time. Stuff like super regeneration, strength boosts, force shield. He gestured. And grapple. That one's really fun. Now that got everyone excited. Zero practically vibrated. Dude, that's like Spider-Man. Kirishima leaned forward. Show us sometime. Jaira tapped her earjack thoughtfully. So that's why your hair and eyes look different. Izuku felt himself relaxing as the tension melted into curiosity instead of fear. For once, people didn't look at him like he was dangerous. They just looked impressed and a little jealous. Then, from across the room, Bakugo stood up too fast, his chair clattering behind him, staring straight at Izuku with murder and shock tangled in his eyes. Nana looked like she'd seen a ghost. Izuku pretended not to notice, because right now, he had classmates asking him about his quirk with awe instead of hate. And for a kid who'd once been told to take a swan dive off a roof, that felt like a small kind of miracle. Transition. Aizawa stood up at the front of the room like he hadn't almost died 2 weeks ago. Same slouch posture, same dead fish stare, same I'm tired of all of you already energy. It was honestly comforting. All right, settle down, he said, voice flat. But carrying, your fight isn't over yet. Not even close. Half the class tensed like he was about to announce a surprise combat gauntlet or another pop quiz from hell. Then he added completely dry. The UA Sports Festival is around the corner. Instant eruption. The entire class practically exploded with cheers, groans, and excited chatter. Kirishima fist pumped. Mina kicked her legs under her desk. Kaminari immediately started bragging. Izuku didn't cheer like the others. He was too busy salivating internally. Aizawa noticed immediately, and Izuku saw his uncle's eyes crinkle just slightly behind the scarf, a hidden chuckle. Izuku tried to wipe the hungry gleam off his face, but it was too late. Aizawa raised a brow. He knew exactly what that look meant. Izuku wasn't thinking about glory or fame or proving himself to the world. He was thinking about quirks. Hundreds of them, all in one place. He swallowed a little too loudly. So many abilities, so many possibilities, so many donors. Willing donors, he corrected himself quickly. From the corner, Jiru whispered to Momo, "Why does he look like he wants to eat the competition?" Bakugo scowled deeply, muttering, "Of course the nerd's drooling." Freak! Nana, sitting stiffly at her desk, didn't look at him at all. Her jaw was clenched tight. Aizawa clapped his hands once. "All right, settle down." He gave Izuku a side glance. "And wipe your mouth, kid. You look like a villain in a buffet line." The class snickered. Izuku tucked his face into his scarf. But he couldn't help it. The sports festival wasn't just an event. It was an opportunity. But still, sure, the sports festival was a god-tier buffet of quirks. Sure, he wanted to dig in like a starving man at an all-you-can-eat. But he wasn't about to break his own code. He'd earned every quirk he had from criminals, abusers, murderers, people who didn't deserve the gift they had. He'd never once stolen from someone innocent, not even when it would have made his life easier. He wasn't that kind of monster. That's why he needed a very specific ability. A copying quirk. No theft, no harm, just data collection. His foot tapped under the desk, impatient. There was one kid at UA who actually had something close. Class 1B's resident salt and vinegar gremlin, Nito Monoma. Izuku had a whole mental folder dedicated to that dude by now. His quirk was called Copy. Copy quirk? Yes. Useful? Kinda. Lasts only 10 minutes? Complete garbage for long-term planning. Izuku needed better. That's why weeks ago he'd contacted the one guy who could sniff out any ability on the black market like a bloodhound in a suit. Jiren. The man might look like a sleazy lounge lizard, but his network was insane. If there was a copying quirk out there, one that made Monomas look like babies' first support item, Jiren would find it. Izuku kept his face neutral as he remembered the conversation. Copying, huh? Jiren had rasped through a cigarette. Nasty ability. Rare too. Most people with that kind of quirk get snatched by companies or lock themselves in research labs. But I'll keep an eye out. Might take a while. Izuku had just nodded. He was patient. When it came to power, patience paid off. And now, the sports festival was the perfect scouting ground. Even without stealing, he could observe, analyze, predict, maybe even get a feel for which quirks he'd want someday. From villains, of course. He scratched at his cheek and muttered under his breath. Copy first, steal second. Ethics preserved. Kaminari leaned over. What was that? Nothing, Izuku said quickly. Aizawa's tired voice cut through the chatter. And remember, this festival is being broadcast worldwide. Don't embarrass me. Izuku smirked to himself. Embarrass? No. He planned to put on a show. A show with research benefits. Aizawa dismissed the class with his usual go home, don't die, and everyone began filing out, some buzzing with excitement, others already stressed eating their lunches. But as Izuku stood up from his desk, Aizawa's voice cut through the room. Shimura, stay. A couple students glanced back, curiously, Bakugo with suspicion, Nana with confusion, but Izuku gave them a small nod and waited until the last of them slipped out. When the door clicked shut, Aizawa dropped the tired teacher act and leaned back against the desk like a dad about to give the talk. So, Aizawa said, arms crossed, tell me your plan for the festival. Izuku rubbed the back of his neck. Honestly, I wasn't going to do much prep. I fight every night already, so I'm sort of warmed up. Aizawa gave him a look that said, don't play dumb with me, kid. You've got more experience than this entire class combined, he said bluntly. Combat, mobility, situational awareness. You fought villains, pros, crime rings, quirked mercenaries, and oh yeah, you killed a Nomo. His eye twitched. I'm still not happy about that part. Izuku raised his hands defensively. It tried to kill you. Aizawa sighed, but didn't argue. He stepped closer. What I need to know is how you're planning to act. You can't fight like foe all for one in the festival. No lethal force. No lethal combos. And absolutely no stealing quirks. Izuku nodded. I know. I already promised Nizu. I won't break that. And your training? Aizawa asked. Izuku shrugged. Same as usual. Sparring. Maybe see if Kana or Himiko want to test some new combos. I'll probably practice my quirk management too, switching between abilities faster, testing some non-lethal moves, stuff like that. Aizawa squinted. You don't sound remotely stressed. I'm not. Izuku honestly smiled. This is kind of easy compared to fighting Endeavor in the rain or dodging Mirko when she's pissed. Aizawa pinched the bridge of his nose. Please stop saying things like that so casually. Izuku chuckled, but then Aizawa's face softened. You'll do well, he said quietly. Just be careful. A lot of eyes will be on you. Some good, some not. Izuku swallowed. He understood what he meant. The Commission, the underworld, certain villains, his former family. Aizawa placed a hand on Izuku's shoulder. You've got nothing to prove to anyone but yourself. You hear me? Izuku nodded, eyes sharp. Yeah, I hear you, Dad. Aizawa froze, blinked, then coughed into his scarf to hide the way his ears went slightly pink. Get out of here, he muttered, waving him away. Go home before you make me sentimental. Izuku chuckles as he walks out the door. Transition. Izuku and Himiko stalked the rooftop edge like two shadows with absolutely zero guilt in their pockets. Midnight air, empty streets, a full week of waiting and praying Jiren delivered. And tonight, payday. Izuku was practically vibrating inside his suit. His visor tracked the target's heat signature with crystal clarity. There he was, a greasy, middle-aged dirtbag in a cheap jacket, strolling out of some underground gambling den like he owned the block. A court trafficker, a black market broker, a guy who hurt people because he could, a perfect donor. Izuku whispered through his visor, that's him. Himiko grinned, fangs showing under her mask. He looked stab-able. Himi, no stabbing until after I grabbed the quirk. She pouted. Then I called dibs on stabbing afterward. You always do. He couldn't help it, he chuckled. This was their twisted version of date night, and somehow it was comforting. Izuku crouched lower on the rooftop, cape fluttering in the breeze. His new visor freshly rebuilt after All Might busted the old one scanned the man, highlighting a faint, pulsing node of quirk activity. Everything Jiren said matched up. Half cut, a copying quirk, 50% power, easily buffable. Izuku's heart thumped faster. With this, I can copy innocent quirks safely. I can study them. I can strategize. I can reach the next level. He licked his lips behind a mask. He felt like a starving wolf staring at a lamb. Himiko leaned against him from behind, whispering, Your breathing's getting weird. You okay? I'm great, he whispered, eyes glowing faintly under the visor. This is it, Himi. This is the one I've been waiting for. She giggled softly. Jiren said he was a real slime ball. Think he'll cry? He'll scream first. They hopped down from the rooftop as quietly as falling snow. Izuku landed behind the man without a sound. Himiko landed perched on a dumpster like a feral cat ready to pounce. The man froze. A low, distorted voice came from Izuku's mask. Good evening. The guy spun around, pale. You your foe all. Izuku touched his shoulder. A green flare erupted between their palms. The man screamed. Himiko clapped excitedly. Izuku watched the swirl of energy slide into his hand, felt the new star form somewhere in his inner mindscape. And then it hit him, like a breath of cold lightning. Half-cut, stable, clean, copying. Exactly what he sought. Izuku stepped back and cracked his knuckles. Himiko tilted her head. Is it good? Izuku smiled behind the mask. Himi, this changes everything. The man collapsed to his knees, sobbing, clutching his now quirkless hands. Himiko licked her lips. So stab now? Izuku sighed. Fine, but don't kill him. I need him alive, so Jiren can use him as leverage. Himiko twirled her knife like a cheerleader twirls a baton. Yes, sir. Izuku turned away as she chased the man, screaming down the alley because he wasn't watching the violence. He was staring at his palm, at the faint shimmer swirling there. A new toy, a new tool, a new way to grow without breaking his oath. And an edge for the sports festival that no one, not Nizu, not Aizawa, not even All Might saw coming. Izuku froze mid-step, every nerve in his body lighting up at once. That feeling, that cold, razor-sharp spike of instinct. The one he'd learned to trust more than breathing? Yeah, it was screaming move. He didn't hesitate. A force shield flared to life around him with a loud whomp, just in time for something fast, heavy, and extremely pissed off to slam into it like a meteor. The impact shook the entire alley. Concrete cracked. Dust exploded off the pavement. Izuku skidded back half a meter, even with super strength bracing him. And standing in the crater she just created, muscles flexed, ears up, eyes burning, was Mirko, the rabbit hero he dodged months ago. One of the most relentless pros alive. The woman who hunted villains for fun. And she looked like she just found her favorite prey again. Well, she grinned, fangs sharp, breath fogging in the night air. Long time no see, blue boy. Izuku swallowed hard behind his mask. He hadn't even sensed her coming. This woman was a freak of nature. Mirko cracked her knuckles. Thought you could hide forever. All for one. Izuku's mind raced. Himiko was still chasing the target down the alley. He was alone. No prep. And she was fast enough to one-shot him if he messed up. He lowered his stance. Oh, come on, Mirko barked. Don't stand there looking scared. You gave Hawks, Endeavor, and me a workout that night. She stomped once, the ground cracking again. I've been itching for round 2. Izuku exhaled through his teeth. So have I. Mirko didn't give him a second chance to breathe. She launched forward with that wild, reckless speed. She was famous for more like a cannonball with legs than a person. The pavement cracked under each kick as she closed the distance in a blink. Izuku didn't back away this time. He stepped into her attack. Her eyes widened just a fraction because she realized he wasn't the same kid she chased half a year ago. Their blows collided, and Izuku moved like a storm of borrowed power. He twisted his wrist, letting aim dodge guide his body at the perfect angle, just barely slipping under her swinging heel. Her kick carved a trench through the asphalt where his head had been. Izuku countered instantly. Blunt force surged through his fist, doubling the raw impact. Super strength stacked on top, tightening every muscle like braided cable. Repulsion rings flared around his knuckles, adding explosive recoil. A ring of white energy snapped outward. His punch hit Mirko square in the forearm as she blocked, and the shockwave blasted her back 3 full meters. Mirko landed in a crouch, boots skidding, eyes blazing with a fierce animal grin. "Oh yes," she barked. "You've been eating your vegetables." Izuku didn't waste time. He vanished. Instant transmission snapped him behind her in a single thought. Then he fired a short-range burst of impure beam, a palm-sized flash of destructive light aimed at her legs. Not enough to maim, just enough to slow. Mirko felt the heat coming and kicked off the nearest wall, rebounding upward like a pinball. The beam scorched the ground below. She twisted midair, laughing. "You're not running tonight, huh?" Izuku spun, force shield flaring an instant before she dropped again, this time with a double heel drop meant to crater his chest. The shield cracked, but held. Izuku's eyes glowed green behind the mask. "Not running," he said quietly. "Just testing." Mirko's grin turned feral. "Good. Let's test until something breaks." Mirko's grin sharpened wide, wild, thrilled out of her mind. Izuku knew that look. It meant she was done playing. Her muscles coiled like steel cables pulled to the breaking point. "All right, blue boy," she growled, crouching low, legs trembling with explosive power. "Let's see if you can handle this." She kicked off the ground. Lunar arc. The world blinked. 1 second she was crouching. The next she carved a crescent-shaped path through the air, moving so fast she tore up the ground behind her in a glowing half-moon of dust and cracked pavement. Izuku barely had time to bring up a force shield before Mirko was on him. A spinning, drop-kicking whirlwind of pure muscle and momentum. Her heel slammed into the shield with a sonic crack. The shield shattered. Izuku was thrown backward like a rag doll. He flipped midair, aim dodge, adjusting his rotation at the last second, so he landed sliding instead of face first into concrete. His boots scraped a long trench across the asphalt before he caught himself. Mirko landed like a meteor, legs flexing, grin widening. "Now we're talking." Izuku's heart hammered. Half adrenaline, half genuine excitement. Because holy hell, he'd wanted to see one of her signature moves up close since forever. His visor flickered red warnings. His forearm ached from absorbing the blow. He knew if that kick had hit him clean, he'd be paced. Mirko cracked her neck left, then right. Round 2, copycat. Izuku inhaled slowly, raising his palm as green energy swirled. Sure, he said, voice distorted but steady. Let's dance. Mirko charged again, and Izuku moved to meet her. Izuku steadied himself, breath sharp, heart pounding in a way that wasn't fear but thrill. Mirko wasn't just some pro hero, she was one of the pros he actually admired long before his life went to hell. Her ferocity, her confidence, her refusal to back down. He couldn't disappoint her. He wouldn't. Mirko lunged again, already twisting for another lunar arc, dust exploding behind her like a rocket trail. And Izuku felt something in his mind click into place. A connection of quirks he'd never tried combining before. A stupid idea. A reckless idea. A Mirko-level idea. Izuku smirked behind the mask. Let's try this. He snapped forward. Instant transmission put him in front of her in a blink. Shock absorption took the brunt of her momentum as she slammed into him. And then he channeled everything at once. His palm glowed violently green. Blunt force flooded his arm. Super strength stacked on top. Muscles tensing like steel. Repulsion rings spun into existence around his fist. Dragon fist ignited, a roaring spectral beast forming around his arm. And finally, impure beam coiled inside the dragon's jaws like a laser primed to detonate. New move. His voice cracked with exhilaration. Mirko's eyes widened. She felt the pressure shift, the air rumble, the street groan beneath them. Izuku slammed his fist forward. Dragon Breaker. The spectral dragon opened its mouth. The impure beam fired. The blunt force repulsion wave detonated. A shock wave erupted so violently that windows down the block rattled. Mirko crossed her arms in front of her face just in time. The blast collided with her like a freight train wrapped in fireworks, launching her backward in a spinning arc through a parked truck, then into a building wall that cracked under the force. For 2 whole seconds, there was silence. Then smoke billowed from the hole she'd made. Izuku panted hard, his arms steaming, visor glitching from the blast output. Oh my god, Himiko whispered from down the alley, completely forgetting her captive was tied up gagged behind her. Baby, that was hot. A chunk of wall crumbled, and Mirko stepped through it, bruised, lip, hair wild, and grinning like she'd just found religion. Ha ha ha, that was awesome. Izuku swallowed, because she wasn't limping. She wasn't winded. She was amped. Round 3, she cracked her knuckles, and you'd better hit me harder this time. Izuku stiffened, because behind her, Aizawa's scarf wrapped around her waist, yanking her off the ground like a misbehaving cat. Rumi, Aizawa growled, stop fighting my son. Mirko blinked, then looked from Aizawa to Izuku, back to Aizawa. You're what? Izuku blinked a few times, still panting a little, still steaming from the Dragon Breaker, his bones quietly snapping back into place thanks to super regeneration. But his focus wasn't on his own healing. It was on the absolute insanity happening 10 feet in front of him. Aizawa stood there, scarf wrapped tight around Mirko's torso like he'd just caught a wild animal mid-animal attack. His eye glowed red, his hair floating. He had her quirk erased completely. Mirko kicked her legs in the air like a furious rabbit being held by the scruff. Let me go, eraser. She barked. I was winning. You were not winning, Aizawa deadpanned. Izuku felt his soul leave his body for a moment. No one talked to Mirko like that except maybe the top 3 and Aizawa on a really bold day. Mirko tried to twist free again. And what the hell was that about him being your son? Izuku choked on his own spit. Aizawa tightened the scarf slightly to stop her wriggling. If you read the updated case file, you'd know Foe All for One isn't wanted anymore. Mirko paused, squinted. You mean the file I didn't read because it was boring? Aizawa's eye twitched. He sighed the sigh of a man who knew she absolutely didn't read it. Yes, he muttered. That one. Mirko stared at him, then at Izuku. Izuku who was standing there with a half-melted sleeve, glowing eyes, and steam rising from his hair. "You adopted the Quirk, stealing gremlin?" Izuku pointed at himself in mild offense. "I have a name." "You adopted the Quirk, stealing gremlin," Mirko repeated louder. Aizawa pinched the bridge of his nose. "I adopted a traumatized teenager who survived a year alone, became a vigilante, and saved my life at the USJ. He's not a gremlin." Izuku raised a hand. "I mean, sometimes I'm a little gremlin." "Not helping," Aizawa hissed under his breath. Mirko barked out a laugh. "Unbelievable." Eraserhead, single dad. "Didn't think I'd see the day." She stared at Izuku again, eyebrows raised. "And you let him call you dad?" Izuku immediately looked away, cheeks flushing behind his visor. Aizawa froze. "That's none of your business." Mirko smirked. "Oh, it's very my business now. I just fought your kid. Who kicks like a busted grenade, by the way?" She popped her shoulder back into place. "Ow." Aizawa released her finally, scarf unwrapping reluctantly. "Rumi," he said flatly, "Izuku is legally cleared. He's training. He's under UA's supervision. You are not to attack him in alleys like a feral animal hunting snacks." Mirko crossed her arms. "He hit me with a laser dragon, Shoyuda. He did that because you tried to put a hole in his chest." "Okay, yeah, fair." Aizawa rubbed his temples. "Can you please just go home?" Mirko pointed at Izuku. "We are finishing our fight." "Someday, kid." Izuku squeaked, "Please don't." Mirko laughed and leapt away, disappearing down the street with 2 kicks gone as fast as she arrived. Aizawa turned to Izuku. "Are you hurt?" Izuku shook his head. "No." Regeneration kicked in already. Aizawa looked him over anyway. "Good. Stop improvising ridiculous moves in back alleys." "That wasn't ridiculous," Izuku mumbled. "It was awesome." Aizawa sighed. "You're grounded." "You can't ground a vigilante." "I absolutely can. You live in my house." Izuku deflated. Aizawa put a hand on his shoulder, gentle this time. "Come on, let's go home." Himiko, too. From the shadows, Himiko raised her hand. "I'm still here, and I love your chaotic family dynamic." Aizawa groaned. It was going to be a long night. Izuku was practically vibrating in place. He stood there in his UA gym uniform, tapping his foot, rocking on his heels, staring at the waiting room door like it was the gate to a candy store staffed entirely by Quirk users. Every few seconds, he muttered something like so many signatures, so many possibilities under his breath. Class 1A was split between excited, nervous, and pretending not to notice the weird gleam in his eye. Then Todoroki stepped forward. He walked right up to Izuku, stopped inches away, and looked at him with that icy, deadpan stare of his. Half the room turned to watch. "Izuku Shimura," he said, calm as a glacier. "I'm declaring war." Izuku blinked. "What?" "You're strong. Too strong to ignore." Todoroki's voice didn't even waver. "I'll defeat you in the festival, and I won't use my left side. Beating you with only ice will prove my point." It took a second for Izuku's brain to catch up. When it did, he let out one baffled laugh. You're serious?" "Dude, that's not even." A loud scoff cut through the room. Bakugo shot out of his seat like a grenade launcher misfiring. "Hey, half and half." Bakugo barked, veins already popping. "You declare war on DKU 2.0 and not me, the future number 1. Todoroki didn't even turn to him. "I'm not interested in you right now." Bakugo made an inhuman noise. Someone, probably Kirishima, gently pulled him back before he exploded the wall. Izuku just stood there, mouth half open. "You know," he said slowly, "you could have just said, 'Let's have a good match.'" Todoroki narrowed his eyes. "No." "All right then." Before Bakugo could launch himself across the room and commit a misdemeanor, Present Mick's voice boomed over the speakers. "Class 1A, get ready, you're on in 30 seconds." Students scrambled. Adrenaline surged. Even the floor seemed to shake under the roaring crowd outside. Izuku stepped toward the exit with the others, rolling his shoulders, breathing in the atmosphere, feeling every quirk in the stadium like static on his skin. He grinned behind his teeth. So many quirks, so many puzzles, so many chances. This was going to be fun. Transition. The stadium practically vibrated with noise. Present Mike stood at the center podium like a man plugged into a lightning socket, waving his arms and hyping up a crowd of thousands. His voice blasted through the speakers with enough volume to make even Izuku wince. Hello, sports festival fans. It's your favorite voice of victory present, Mike. The crowd erupted. And joining me today, shockingly against his will, but contractually obligated, is my totally enthusiastic and definitely not suffering partner, Shota Aizawa. Aizawa sat slumped in the commentator's seat, dead-eyed, scarf wrapped loosely around his shoulders like a blanket of disappointment. He didn't even bother turning on a mic before muttering, "I hate this." Mike laughed into the speakers like he'd just told the best joke in the world. That's my guy. Full of pep, full of spirit. Aizawa slowly raised one finger and flicked on his mic. Shut up, Hizashi. The audience loved it. Aizawa did not. Izuku, standing with Class 1A at the entrance tunnel, couldn't help the tiny smile tugging at his lips. Yeah, his dad definitely didn't want to be there, but the seat gave him the best possible view of his son tearing it up today. Present Mike cleared his throat dramatically. Let's bring out our future heroes. Starting with Class 1. The tunnel lit up. The doors slid open, and Class 1A stepped out into the arena as the crowd roared like a tidal wave. Izuku walked among them, hands tucked into his pockets, trying not to stare too hard at every Quirk signature pulsing in the stadium like stars. It was overwhelming, a buffet of possibilities. Present Mike continued shouting the introductions as 1B, General Studies, and Support Course filed in, and presiding over this year's matches. The judge of the arena, the queen of the night, the woman who keeps every hero honest midnight. The R-rated hero strutted forward with her whip twirling over one shoulder, offering the crowd a playful wink. Yes, thank you. I am your judge, your referee, and occasionally your babysitter, she said with a purr. So don't make me regret showing up. Izuku exhaled once, rolling his neck. This was it. The whole country was watching. Midnight cracked her whip once, letting it echo across the stadium. All right, students. Before we begin our first event, tradition calls for a representative to give the opening pledge. She swept her arm toward Class 1A. Would the student who placed first in the entrance exam please step forward? A rumble rolled through the stands. Every camera snapped to the same person. Katsuki Bakugo strutted out of 1A's ranks like he owned the place. Izuku could already feel the second-hand embarrassment creeping in. He muttered under his breath, "Please don't say something stupid, please don't." Bakugo grabbed the mic. "I'm gonna win." That was it. No flourish, no politeness, just pure nitroglycerin ego blasted through a microphone. The stadium went dead silent for half a second, then erupted into a mix of cheers, gasps, laughter, and a whole lot of, "Did he seriously just? Who the hell does he think he is?" 1A really is full of maniacs. Izuku dragged a hand down his face. "Why am I not surprised?" he muttered. Even Aizawa, up in the commentator's booth, pinched the bridge of his nose. Present Mike cackled. And there you have it. Short, sweet, and explosive, just like our new hotshot. 1B immediately started trash-talking. The general course glared daggers. Support course students began sketching explosions out of pure spite. Basically, Class 1, it just became target number 1 for the entire sports festival. Izuku exhaled slowly, fighting the urge to slap Bakugo upside the head from across the stadium. "Great," he whispered to himself. "Now they're all coming for us." And honestly, he couldn't wait. The giant jumbotron over the stadium flickered to life, catching everyone's attention. Midnight lifted her whip and tapped the screen with its tip. And now, future heroes, eyes up. Time to choose our first event. A huge spinning wheel appeared on the screen. Sections labeled Obstacle Race, Cavalry Battle, Human Dodgeball, Capture the Flag, Giant Robots Round 2, Lava Run, and other options that were definitely not legal in any normal school. It spun fast, clicking loudly with every rotation. Izuku leaned forward, squinting. Himiko would have been bouncing off the walls right now if she were allowed in the stands. Bakugo cross-armed himself like everything on that wall personally offended him. Todoroki watched quietly, as if he already planned to ice over whatever the event was. The wheels slowed, and clacked to a stop. Obstacle race. The crowd erupted in cheers. Midnight snapped her whip again, grinning. The obstacle race. A classic. A brutal test of speed, improvisation, quirk mastery, and survival instincts. Present Mike added his own scream from a booth. And with over 2 kilometers of mayhem, folks, this one gets messy. Midnight held up a finger, pacing in front of the students. Rules are simple. You start at the gate behind me, run the entire course, and make it to the finish line. The students murmured, tension rising. Midnight continued. No fighting your fellow students. Tripping, blocking, throwing, confusing, baiting, distracting, scaring, irritating, or accidentally nudging someone into a pit of doom is allowed. A few kids gulped. Bakugo grinned like someone just gave him permission to commit mild crimes. Izuku raised an eyebrow. Wait, so some fighting is allowed? Midnight winked. Only if you don't call it fighting. She pointed toward the massive metal starting gates, gradually lowering behind her. First 60 students to cross-qualify for the next round. Everyone else? Better luck next year. Izuku felt his heart jump. This was perfect. Obstacle races meant unpredictability. Unpredictability meant quirk variety. He could already feel dozens of signatures out there. Flaring, pulsing, begging to be studied. Midnight lifted her arm dramatically. All right, competitors, head to the gate. Class 1A, and the rest of the students filed toward the starting line. Izuku exhaled slowly, smiling under his breath. This was going to be fun. Transition. Toshinori and Inko sat in the VIP box, right beside the other faculty and board members. The drone cameras swept over the field as the students gathered at the starting gate. Inko leaned forward, clutching her hands. Nana looks so nervous, but she'll do great, right, honey? Toshinori nodded, eyes fixed on his daughter. She's more prepared than I ever was at her age. She'll shine today. Then his gaze flicked toward another figure on the field. Izuku. His jaw tightened for a moment, but he forced himself to look away. Nizu sat 2 seats down, dangling his legs, sipping tea like this was the latest episode of his favorite drama. Toshinori cleared his throat. Principal Nizu, you mentioned something earlier. Something about nerfing Izuku? Nizu smiled pleasantly, the kind of smile that told you he was about to say something deeply concerning and was going to enjoy it. Oh yes, it would have been terribly unfair otherwise. Inko blinked. Unfair how? Nizu tapped his cup lightly. Well, you see, Izuku's performance against the Nomu, then his high-speed skirmish with you, and then the footage of his battles with Mirko, Endeavor, and Hawks all suggested he was far, far outside the standard student power curve. Toshinori frowned. Meaning? Meaning, Nizu continued cheerfully. If we allowed him full access to his entire arsenal of quirks, he could simply teleport the moment the event starts, dash through every obstacle, copy any quirk he wants, and finish the race before the others even leave the starting line. Inko's eyes widened. Wait, he could do that. Oh yes, Nizu said, nodding with absolute certainty. He'd finish the course in under 15 seconds. And that's being generous. Toshinori stared, speechless. Nizu took another sip. So, for fairness, I asked him and he agreed not to use certain abilities during the festival. Which abilities? Toshinori asked, uneasy. Nizu cheerfully ticked them off with his small paw. Instant transmission, impure beam in its full power setting, dragon construct stronger than allowed output, anything involving stolen OFA adjacent enhancements, and several other delightful tricks. Inko placed a hand to her chest. So he's going handicapped? Severely, Nizu said, smiling. Toshinori let out a slow breath. So you gimped him? Oh, absolutely, Nizu replied with a chipper tone. I prefer the term balanced, but yes, dramatically. Toshinori looked back down at the field. Nana was stretching, full of determination. Izuku was quietly analyzing every student near him like they were experiments under a microscope. Inko whispered, Do you think he can compete fairly? Nizu's smile grew. Oh, Mrs. Yagi, that boy doesn't need fairness. This will be entertaining regardless. Tashinori swallowed, suddenly very unsure of how this day was going to go. Down on the field, Izuku cracked his knuckles, eyes gleaming. Even nerfed? He was still Izuku Shimura Aizawa, and this race was about to get very interesting. Transition. Izuku finished his stretch, arms overhead, back cracking in a satisfying ripple. He felt good actually, he felt great. The borrowed engine Quirk throbbed faintly in his calves like a heartbeat, ready to ignite the second he gave it permission. Tenya had been so painfully earnest about it too. If my Quirk can help you become a better hero, then please use it freely. Izuku had smiled, thanked him, and internally gone nice, free turbo mode. He stood at the absolute front of the pack, bouncing slightly on the balls of his feet. Every other student was tense, stiff, or buzzing with anxiety. Izuku? He was practically humming. Then she approached. Nana, his sister older now, stronger, stiff-backed with the weight of one for all buzzing inside her. She walked up to him carefully, like she was approaching a dangerous animal she still wanted to pet. Good luck, she said quietly. Izuku blinked. That wasn't what he expected. Not after everything. He smiled soft, hesitant, not unfriendly. You too. He extended his hand. For 1 second, one tiny moment, she reached forward, but then she froze. Her eyes flicked to his palm, to the black hole in the center, to the quirk that stole everything. She yanked her hand back like she'd touched fire. Izuku's smile didn't drop, but something behind his eyes did. Right? He murmured, voice barely above the wind. Makes sense. Before he could say anything else. Boom! The starting cannon went off. The gates dropped, and Izuku let instinct take the wheel. His calves exploded with engine fire, blue sparks tearing straight through the ground as the pipes burst out through his gym pants like chrome veins. He didn't just run. He launched. The Nomu strength enhancement quirks he'd taken months ago roared alive in his muscles, fusing perfectly with the jet thrusters kicking off behind him. The entire front row blurred in his wake. Even Bakugo's shout of the hell was swallowed by wind pressure. Izuku shot down the track like a missile wrapped in denim, the world streaking past him in a riot of color and cheering. This was what freedom felt like. A rush of air, a storm of power, and a stadium full of quirks waiting to be analyzed, copied, taken, or broken. Up in the stands, Nizu giggled into his teacup. Oh my. Even nerfed, he's still terrifying. Tashinori tensed. Inko covered her mouth. And Nana? She watched her brother shoot forward like a bullet and felt her stomach twist. Not from fear, but from the sinking realization. Izuku Shimura Aizawa wasn't someone she could save anymore. He was someone she would have to catch. If she could. Izuku skidded to a stop on the balls of his feet, engines on his calves roaring and sputtering like miniature turbines. Dust kicked up around him as he stared upward at a wall of metal giants, the zero-pointers, towering, city block-sized robots lumbering in a neat formation. Present Mike practically screamed into the mic. Robo Inferno! The zero-pointers are back, baby! Izuku's eyebrows shot up. They had to fight these during the entrance exam? And without powers like his? That explained why only psychos, prodigies, and adrenaline addicts passed. He bounced lightly on his heels, letting the new engine quirk purr. This was the moment where a normal competitor would panic, scream, or flee. Izuku just muttered. Nizu said hold back, so light attack it is. A robot swung a massive arm toward him. Izuku stepped forward and flicked his wrist. A translucent teal force shield curved into existence with a soft whom, absorbing the hit like it was a pillow tap. He sighed. Too light. So he layered in a thread of blunt force, the tiniest pinch of strength enhancement, and a microspark of impure beam, just enough to tickle the metal. He jabbed the shield. Boom! The zero-pointer was launched backward like a baseball punted by God, skidding across the ground in a screech of tearing steel. Its head popped off and bounced twice like a can in the wind. Izuku flinched. Okay, maybe lighter. The crowd went feral. Present Mike was screaming about unidentified child with anti-tank hands. Aizawa, from the booth, buried his face into his scarf. He absolutely warned Nizu this would happen. Nizu, seated beside him, clapped politely like he was watching a school play. Izuku zipped past the toppled robot, trying to ignore the cameras and the gasps. Transition. Izuku landed in the soft dirt on the far side of the pit, skidding 3 meters before finally coming to a stop. His calves were still steaming, engines whining happily after their first real workout. Unfortunately, his gym uniform pants were not as thrilled. He glanced down at the shredded fabric flapping around his knees. Guess I overdid the boost. He had combined engine, strength enhancement, and a precisely angled burst of repulsion rings to launch himself over the entire pit in one clean arc, and the air pressure shredded the pants on the way up. Present Mike lost his mind. Ladies and gentlemen, Shimura Aizawa just cleared the pit like a blue missile in boots. Aizawa slumped in his announcer chair. Nizu, sipping tea, quietly murmured marvelous form. Terrible fabric integrity. Izuku didn't waste time worrying about wardrobe malfunctions. The next hazard stretched out before him like a war zone, the minefield, scattered with dozens, maybe hundreds of non-lethal explosive plates. The crowd tensed. Izuku blinked once, then blurred forward. He didn't even touch the mines. He was simply too fast, a streak of blue wind blasting through the obstacle course like a ghost. All anyone saw was a spray of dust, a shockwave of displaced air, and a trail carved into the dirt. Before Class 1B reached the first mine, before Todoroki finished calculating how to ice the field, before Bakugo could even curse properly, Izuku crossed the finish line. The stadium erupted in chaos. Present Mike screeched, record time. He broke the old one by almost a full minute. Bakugo froze mid-stride, eyes twitching. Todoroki's breath fogged in front of him. Impossible. The other students stared like they'd just watched an alien spaceship land. Up in the stands, Tashinori gripped the railing so hard it bent. He wasn't supposed to be this strong. Inko fainted into her husband's arm, and Aizawa simply sighed behind the mic, voice dry as sandpaper. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is him holding back. Izuku stood calmly in the center of the arena, hands on his hips, the faintest smile tugging his lips. Transition. The stadium slowly settled as the last students limped, dragged, or exploded their way across the finish line. Some were bruised, some were half buried in dirt. A few were absolutely fuming Bakugo, and a handful looked like they were questioning their life choices entirely. Izuku stood among the qualifiers, bouncing lightly on his heels again, engines humming quietly below the surface. His pants were still shredded at the calves, a fashion disaster he had fully accepted at this point. Midnight strode back to center stage, heels clicking against the arena floor, whip twirling lazily around her wrist. "All right, everyone, congratulations to our qualifiers," she said, voice purring through the microphone. The crowd cheered. Izuku clapped politely. Bakugo yelled something unintelligible that was probably profanity. Midnight snapped her fingers toward the giant Jumbotron behind her. "Now, eyes up front. Time for our second event selection." The massive screen flickered, then displayed another giant spinning wheel, even more chaotic than the last one. The categories were wildly labeled. Cavalry battle, capture the flag, hero versus villain chase, free for all freeze tag, quirkless combat round, tug of war with robots, minecart mania, gauntlet roulette. Izuku couldn't help leaning forward a little. More events meant more quirk exposure. Why did this feel like Black Friday for power accumulation? Present Mike shouted over the speakers, "Spin that wheel." The wheels started spinning, clicking loudly with each rotation. Students tensed, murmuring or praying. Some groaned at the more ridiculous options. Izuku just hummed, hands in his pockets. He didn't actually care what the event was. He'd adapt within seconds anyway. The wheels slowed, and finally came to a stop with a loud clack. The selected tile lit up. Cavalry battle. The arena burst into cheers and groans in equal measure. Midnight grinned wickedly. 50 points for all of you, except our first place winner. She pointed directly at Izuku, who is worth 10 million points. Izuku froze. Todoroki inhaled slowly. Bakugo whispered, "Kill," under his breath. Niza drank his tea without breaking eye contact, and Aizawa massaged his temples, already regretting his entire profession. Midnight clapped her hands. "Form your teams. Try not to trample each other in the process." Izuku stood there silently for a moment, engines cooling, feeling dozens of eyes burning into him from every direction. "Oh," he muttered to himself. Niza definitely did that on purpose. And the hunt began. Except this time, he was the prey. The instant Present Mike yelled, "Begin." It was like someone kicked a hornet's nest made of teenagers. Every single team charged. Izuku. It wasn't even subtle. No hesitation, no planning, just pure chaotic stampede. Bakugo's team blasted forward like a rocket made of screaming and glitter. Todoroki's team sprinted with military precision, ice already frosting across the ground. Nana's team surged from the left, Hatsum yelling about field data, while Ochako floated obstacles into the air. Dozens of smaller teams followed behind, a tidal wave of students screaming for the 10 million headband. Izuku slipped his hands into his pockets and smirked. "All right then, let's have some fun." He didn't move at first. He just watched the chaos closing in from three sides faster, faster, faster until they were seconds away from dogpiling him into the dirt. Right before the first hand grabbed him, Izuku's calves ignited in a burst of blue-white flame as the engine Quirk roared to life. He vanished. Floom! A shockwave tore across the arena, blasting dust into the air as Izuku reappeared 10 meters above everyone's heads, standing on a thin force shield platform he conjured beneath his boots. The crowd went wild. Present Mike shrieked into the speakers. Student Shimura Aizawa is airwalking on energy like it's a Tuesday morning. "People, this kid is nuts." Down below, everyone skid to a stop, staring up at him. Bakugo snarled, palms sparking. "Get down here, you cheating little." Todoroki's voice was cold. "We need to freeze him in place." Nana clenched her teeth. "That headband. I need it." Izuku shrugged at them all with that cocky, casual grin. "Hey, you're the ones who came at me all at once. I'm just being polite." Then he stomped lightly with his heel, firing a concentrated repulsion ring straight down. It didn't hit anyone, but the blast of wind pressure slammed into half the approaching teams, sending them stumbling back like bowling pins from a god-tier strike. He flipped backward off the platform, landing on a second force shield midair. Then another, a stepping stone dance over thin air. "I won't take any of your quirks," he called down cheerfully. "But your dignity? That's fair game." Bakugo launched himself upward with an explosion. Todoroki iced half the field to gain elevation. Nana jumped with OFA enhanced power. Izuku's grin widened. Perfect. Now, they were playing his game. This wasn't survival anymore. It was sport. Izuku kept one eye on the clock in his head. 9 minutes. 8. 7. It wasn't hard. He'd gotten used to tracking timing during patrols, balancing quirk cooldowns, and timing his moves between enemy attacks. Compared to that, a school event was nothing. The entire arena had become one big game of catch me if you can. He skimmed across the air on thin force shields like stepping stones. He ricocheted off repulsion rings to change direction midair. He used engine bursts for sudden speed spikes short, controlled, nothing too wild. He even threw in a few light taps of blunt force to keep things entertaining, knocking away overeager kids without actually hurting anyone. The crowd was losing their minds. Present Mike was screaming. He's playing tag in 3D space. Somebody stop this madman. Izuku dodged a combined attack from two teams, spun in midair, and landed on a raised shield platform just long enough to look down at the chaos. And there, right below him, was his sister, Nana Estrella Yagi. She was charging toward him with her team, but something was off. She wasn't using one for all, not even a flicker of extra power, not even a hint of enhanced speed or strength. Izuku watched her for a second, calm and detached. Either she's holding back, he murmured, or she still refuses to use that quirk. He shrugged and boosted away before she could reach him. Not my problem. Nana stopped mid-run, breath shaky, eyes glued to the spot he'd vanished from. She clenched her fist hard, trying to steady the swirl of emotions inside her. Tokoyami noticed. "Are you all right?" Nana forced a shaky smile. "Fine. Totally fine." Hatsum zoomed around her, shouting about her super jump boots version 5, which definitely looked like small nukes strapped to her feet. Ochako floated after Izuku helplessly. "He's too fast. I can't even." Meanwhile, Izuku glided effortlessly above them all, counting down the last few minutes. He dodged Bakugo's explosions. He sidestepped Todoroki's ice pillars. He leapt over Monoma's desperate copying attempts. He outran entire cavalry formations with nothing but a grin. 3 minutes left. 2, 1. Izuku didn't even flinch when the buzzer blared across the arena. He just hovered there, hands in his pockets, the 10 million headband untouched. He'd played the game. He'd kept his promise to not go all out. He'd held back. But judging from the stunned silence in the stadium, nobody else realized that. Transition. Everyone was given 2 hours to break for lunch until the final event. Izuku slid open the door Aizawa told him to use, expecting maybe a quiet room, a bento, and his dad grading papers in the corner. What he got instead? Chaos. Warm, adorable, dangerous chaos. Because the second he stepped inside, Zuku, Himiko launched at him like a happy missile, wrapping her legs around his waist and peppering his face with kisses. Her hoodie sleeves dangled like little flags flapping in victory. Right behind her, Kana leaned against the couch with her usual tired but smug expression, one eyebrow raised like she'd been expecting this reaction. But then, there was a third woman. Tall, jacked, white hair flowing like a battle flag, rabbit ears twitching. Rumi Usajiyama herself, Mirko, stood there in casual street clothes, but radiating pure intensity. Izuku froze. Himiko froze. Kana smirked. Rumi crossed her arms, cracked her neck, and grinned sharply. "Well, aren't you going to say hi to your girlfriend's girlfriend?" Izuku stared. Himiko cheerfully added, "We picked her up on the way." Rumi said she had the day off and wanted to hang out. Kana deadpanned. Translation. She bullied her way into our room because she's nosy and refuses to admit she likes the kid. Rumi's ears shot up. "Hey, I'm not. I just want to see him fight close up, all right? He's interesting, and I owe him a rematch." Himiko hugged Izuku again. "Also, she totally wants to kiss you." Rumi blushed, and punched the wall hard enough to dent it. Shut up." Izuku just stood there, blinking rapidly as his brain tried to reboot. "Are we?" He pointed between the 3 girls. "Are we a team now?" Rumi shrugged. "Looks like it." Himiko beamed. "Yup." Kana slid onto the couch. "As long as I'm not responsible for her property damage." Izuku felt his face heat up. His mouth worked, but nothing came out. Rumi smirked and poked his chest. "Hey, don't pass out now. We came to cheer you on." Himiko nodded like an excited puppy. "And feed you." Kana held up bento boxes. "And keep you from dying." The 3 girls crowded around him like a pack claiming their territory. And in that moment, Izuku realized he might actually be in over his head. Not with the sports festival. With them. Transition. Nana sat with her tray of food untouched, poking half-heartedly at her Katsudon, while Kirishima and Mina argued over who could bench more if they trained with Sato. Uraraka laughed. Bakugo yelled at someone. Life kept moving around her, but she barely heard any of it. Her eyes kept drifting back to her right hand, the hand that held one for all. It pulsed sometimes, like a heartbeat that wasn't hers, like someone knocking on the other side of her skin. She clenched and unclenched her fingers. "Yo, Nana, you okay?" Mina leaned over, concern replacing her usual bubbly grin. Nana forced a small smile. Yeah, sorry, just thinking." Bakugo snorted. "Extras distracting you again?" Nana didn't rise to the bait. She just kept staring at her palm. It wasn't pain. OFA didn't hurt. Not exactly. But she kept feeling flashes, little sparks she could swear were trying to say something. Images. Voices. A silhouette she didn't recognize. Dad told her was normal. He told her the Quirk had a will. He told her she'd feel the previous users eventually. But there was something else he didn't know. One for All wasn't just acting up. It felt afraid. It felt angry. And every time she trained, she felt this sharp panic like OFA was warning her about something. She bit her lip. She wanted to tell someone MidoriIkaru, even Bakugo, anyone, but she knew she couldn't. Dad drilled that into her. OFA was a national secret. If villains found out, if word got out, her friends could be targeted. Kirishima nudged her shoulder gently. You sure you're good? You're looking kind of pale. She forced out a laugh, waving it off. I'm fine. Just nervous about the next event, I guess. They all accepted that answer. Except Todoroki, who glanced at her from across the table, eyes narrowing not in judgment, but curiosity. Nana swallowed hard. She looked back at her hand again. OFA pulsed warm, insistent, worried. She whispered under her breath, so low no one could hear. What are you trying to tell me? Transition. Everyone filed back into the stadium, the roar of the crowd washing over them like a wave. Present Mike was hyping the audience to near combustion levels while Midnight took center stage, heels clicking against the arena floor as she raised her whip mic. All right, my little lovelies, she shouted, hips cocked as the screen behind her lit up. It's time for our final event of the day, the one you've all been waiting for. The crowd screamed. Students braced themselves. Midnight grinned. The battle tournament. Most of Class 1A had expected this. They'd been whispering about it all of lunch. But the twist came next. Midnight snapped her whip once, and the bracket appeared on the Jumbotron. Except something was off. There were an odd number of names. Since we had an unexpected addition to our roster this year, Midnight continued dramatically, eyes lingering knowingly on Izuku for a split second. The brackets were left with an extra slot unpaired. Everyone leaned in. So the final round won't be a 1v1. She spun, pointing at the screen. It will be a three-way battle royal. The three winners of their semi-final matches will meet in one explosive finale. Gasps from students. Cheers from the audience. Bakugo grinning like a feral gremlin. Todoroki maintaining his glacier-cool expression. Nana swallowing hard. Izuku? He smiled a little too much. Midnight pointed her whip at the class. Your matchups have been randomized, no complaints, no do-overs. The brackets have been set. Let destiny, she threw her arm out dramatically, or chaos, depending on how you see it, decide your fate. The screen shuffled names rapidly before slowing. Slowing. Stopping. Murmurs rippled through the class. Izuku saw his first opponent and blinked. Then smirked. This would be fun. Midnight tapped her board. First two fighters to the stage. The rest of you, wait in the stands or prep rooms. The stadium trembled with anticipation. This wasn't just combat. This was the world watching. Heroes, civilians, villains, the commission in. Izuku's old family. Izuku cracked his knuckles, bouncing lightly on his heels as he headed toward the tunnel. He whispered to himself. Tournament mode on. Izuku stepped onto the tiled arena floor, boots clicking softly against the polished stone. The roar of the crowd dimmed into a low hum behind him as the stadium door slid shut. Across from him stood a tall, tired-eyed boy with messy purple hair and an expression that said he'd rather be anywhere else. Hitoshi Shinso, a general studies kid with a chip on his shoulder and something sharp simmering beneath the surface. Present Mick's voice boomed through the speakers. From general studies, the underrated underdog. Shinso Hitoshi. Shinso didn't react, not even a twitch. And from the hero course, the blue demon of record-breaking speed. Izuku Shimura. Aizawa. Izuku winced. That's way too dramatic, he muttered under his breath. Shinso finally spoke, voice flat and unimpressed. So you're the famous transfer. The one everyone's been talking about nonstop. His eyes dragged lazily over Izuku's posture, stance, breathing. I expected someone taller. Izuku blinked, confused. A thanks? Shinso's mouth twitched. Flash annoyance, then neutral again. That wasn't a compliment. Izuku sighed. I figured. They circled each other slowly, both cautious but for different reasons. Shinso's eyes were calculating, reading him like a puzzle he'd already halfway solved. Izuku recognized that look. It was the same one Aizawa had the first time he sized Izuku up as a vigilante. Shinso continued, You're ridiculously strong. Everyone can see that. But strength alone doesn't win everything. His tone sharpened. You should have been in general studies with me. You don't have the mindset of a hero. Izuku raised an eyebrow. You don't even know me? No. Shinso's gaze narrowed. I know enough. And something in the way he said it sent a small alert flashing in Izuku's head. He didn't know what Shinso's quirk was, which meant he had to be careful. Very careful. He relaxed his shoulders, adopting a comfortable stance. I've heard about kids in general studies wanting to move in a hero course. You here to prove something? Shinso cracked his knuckles, still maintaining eye contact. I'm here to take what should have been mine. Midnight raised her arm. Ready? Izuku exhaled. Don't speak recklessly. Don't respond to anything weird. Stay calm. Begin. Whip. The match started, and Shinso's lips curved into a knowing smirk. He opened his mouth. I bet your dad's proud of you, huh? Izuku didn't even realize the trap had sprung. Shinso smirked faintly, eyes sharpening. So, your dad's proud of you, right? Izuku answered without thinking. Yeah, His voice cut off. His pupils shrank, and then widened into empty red rings. Shinso's smirk deepened. Perfect. Now walk out of the arena. Izuku turned on his heel and obeyed instantly, stepping toward the boundary line like a sleepwalker. The crowd erupted in confused shouting. Even Present Mike stuttered mid-sentence. Aizawa shot halfway out of his seat. What the hell? Class 1A stared in panic. Bakugo's chair crashed over as he leapt up yelling. Nana froze, face going pale. But Izuku, inside his own head, he wasn't scared. If anything, he was impressed. So this is brainwashing, he thought as his body marched toward an automatic loss. I didn't expect something this interesting today. A familiar voice crackled into existence beside him, low and rumbling like distant thunder. Well, someone's gotten themselves hijacked. Embarrassing. Izuku didn't have to turn his AFO vestige manifested at his side in a shimmer of dark green flame, arms folded, looking mildly amused. Hey, Izuku muttered mentally. Kinda busy getting mind controlled here. Busy? You're strolling out of the ring like you're going shopping. The vestige sighed. Boy, to be brainwashed. The condition is responding verbally. You did that. Congrats. Izuku felt his consciousness drifting along the edges of control, yet completely aware. But you're acting like it's no big deal. It isn't. The vestige pointed lazily at the star map of quirks behind them. You've got half a dozen mental fortification quirks, resistance traits, and the Nomu's pinolification. His control is only grabbing your surface actions. He can't reach your core. Izuku blinked. So, can I break out of it? Of course. The vestige stretched like a cat. But let the kid enjoy his moment for a few more steps. He's betting everything on this. There's a certain cruelty in ending his triumph too soon. Izuku frowned. You want me to let him get cocky? I want you to understand your enemy's resolve. The vestige's eyes glowed faintly. This boy has nothing but his quirk. Nothing but the dream they denied him. Respect that. Izuku's blank marching body neared the edge of the arena. Gasp shot through the stadium. Present Mick's voice trembled. He's about to wait. Hold up. Shinso's confident expression sharpened, eyes glued to Izuku's heel nearing the chalked line. And internally, the vestige clicked his tongue. That's enough. Any longer and Aizawa has a stroke. Izuku smirked mentally. Right. A low crackle of green energy flickered under his skin, and his foot stopped, just 1 inch before stepping out. Shinso's eyes widened in horror. Izuku's voice returned, steady and calm. That's a really cool quirk, Shinso. The brainwashing shattered like glass. Izuku rolled his shoulders as full control flooded back into his limbs. The crackle of energy under his skin dimmed, and he looked up at Shinso with something between admiration and mischief. Shinso's face twisted not with anger, but disbelief. How did you do that? His voice cracked. No one has ever broken out of my brainwashing. No one. Not once. What did you do? Izuku dusted his sleeves like he'd just tripped instead of nearly forfeiting. You should take pride in it, he said casually. Most people wouldn't break out. You almost had me. Shinso clenched his fists. Don't dodge the question. Izuku smiled, not smug, not condescending, genuinely appreciative. You forced me into a corner. And honestly, he nodded respectfully. You should consider that a win. Be proud you pushed me that far. Shinso's breath hitched. For just a moment, the hurt behind his ambition flickered through everything he wanted, everything he thought he'd never have. But then, Brom! Izuku turned the engines on his calves to full throttle. Blue flames sparked out like miniature jet exhausts ripping through the air. Present Mike nearly fell over in shock as the ground beneath Izuku cracked. Oh no, Shinso muttered. Izuku lowered his stance. Anyway, he said, tone shifting, I can't let you win like this. He launched. FWM. 1 second Shinso saw Izuku shift. The next, Izuku was already there. Open palm, raised force shield forming. Blunt force primed. Engine propulsion burning like a rocket. A perfect non-lethal takedown. Izuku tapped Shinso's chest lightly. Boom whoomp. The shockwave blasted Shinso off his feet, sending him skidding across the tiles in a clean, controlled arc. Not a bone broken, but absolutely, undeniably out of the ring. Midnight's whip cracked the air. Shinso is out. The winner, Izuku Shimura Aizawa. The crowd went wild. Shinso lay on his back for a moment, staring at the ceiling, chest rising and falling. Then he groaned and sat up, glaring at Izuku, who only walked over and offered him a hand. You really impressed me, Izuku said. Your quirk is incredible. Shinso hesitated, then took the hand. Izuku and Shinso walked side by side toward the tunnel, the noise of the stadium fading behind them. Midnight practically melted at the display of sportsmanship, fluttering her lashes and purring into her mic. Oh, look at that emotional maturity. How adorable. Izuku smiled politely, but internally, mission accomplished. Just before Shinso took his hand, Izuku had brushed his wrist barely a graze, hidden under all the theatrics. Half-cut activated. Brainwash copied. A soft pulse of green light only Izuku could feel slipped into his palm like a secret handshake. He didn't react outwardly, keeping his expression calm while the vestige hummed amused approval in the back of his mind. 2 new quirks officially added to the collection. Engine Tenyu's version. Brainwash Shinso's version. Not a bad haul for a single morning. As they reached the hallway, Izuku stretched his arms, joints popping lightly. Now what next? Yairo's quirk had insane potential. Creation was basically legalized crafting steroids, being able to make weapons, tools, gear, anything she understood down to its molecular structure. Ochako's zero gravity was the opposite, simple, flexible, and perfect for mobility tricks, combo setups, battlefield control. Plus, it'd be adorable watching Ochako try to hide her horror when she realized he could copy her. Izuku smirked to himself. Why not both? Aizawa, up in the stands, saw that smirk from across the stadium and immediately pinched the bridge of his nose. He knew that look. That was the Izuku is planning something morally gray again look. Back on the field, Present Mike practically vibrated with excitement. And now, let's give it up for our next match. The crowd roared. Izuku waved politely to them as he exited the arena, Shinso shaking off the last of the blow. Hey, Shinso muttered quietly, what you said back there, thanks. Really? Izuku clapped him on the shoulder. You earned it. As the doors closed behind him and he walked deeper into the shadows of the tunnel, he whispered to himself with a small, eager grin. Time to keep stacking the deck. Transition. Izuku slouched back in the bleachers, arms crossed casually while the tournament fights blasted on below explosions, ice waves, laser beams, lightning crackling. The crowd went nuts for every flashy hit, but Izuku barely registered any of it. His mind was somewhere else entirely. Quirks. All his quirks. He let his eyes half close and mentally opened that strange constellation map inside his head, each ability glowing like a star or drifting like an ember in the void. He murmured under his breath, okay, let's see what I'm working with. There they were. Shock absorption, super regeneration, blunt force, force shield, repulsion rings, impure beam, super strength, engine, brainwash, instant transmission, dragon fist, shape shifting, grapple, strength enhancement ×5, And the list kept going, each quirk orbiting him like his own private galaxy. He'd never really slowed down enough to appreciate it all. He'd been fighting, running, dodging the commission, surviving, not cataloging, not savoring. Now he could, and it felt good. He thought about the ones he'd transferred, two little motes drifting away like distant sparks. Speedy recovery, given to Aizawa, so the man didn't have to walk around looking like half a mummy every week. That one had surprised Izuku when it just slid out of him and into his dad's palm like passing a torch. Then replaced in his own collection by the Nomu's super regeneration, something far more durable, immediate, and frankly broken. Izuku smirked to himself. Yeah, this one's way better. The mental map glowed faintly, the energy humming in the back of his brain like purring engines. It wasn't just power. It wasn't even about winning. It was the hoarding instinct, the thrill of acquiring something rare. Dangerous, beautiful in the way only raw power could be. Izuku leaned back, fingers tapping absently against his bicep. He understood dragons now, the way they curled around gold, treasured artifacts, trinkets, the way they collected, not because they needed it, but because it pleased some ancient instinct buried in their chest. His quirks were his hoard, his treasure, each one earned, stolen, taken from those who abused them, or willingly given by allies who trusted him. He felt the weight of them all and smiled. And I'm not done yet. Aizawa glanced up at him from the faculty area, already knowing exactly what that smile meant. Somewhere in the stands, Nana watched him too, confused and uneasy at how familiar he felt. Transition. Izuku's eyes drifted up to the Jumbotron as the bracket reset, glowing names sliding into place like puzzle pieces. Round 2, Match 1. Izuku Shimura, Aizawa, versus Nana Yagi. A low whistle slipped out of him. Huh, that's a thing. Beside him, classmates murmured confused, excited, terrified while the entire stadium rippled into a roar. But Nana? She froze. All color drained from her face like someone pulled the plug. Her chopsticks clattered from her hand. Bakugo stopped mid-shout. Ochako gasped and grabbed Nana's arm. Nana, Urariko whispered. You okay? Nana didn't answer. Her breath hitched. Her pupils shrank. Her fingers twitched like she just touched live electricity. She stared at the screen, unblinking, hands shaking so hard she had to clasp them together just to keep them still. No one else understood what she saw. To everyone else, it was just a match between classmates. But to her, it was the brother who ran away. The boy she hurt without meaning to. The vigilante who nearly died in front of her. The one she still cared about. And the one who now stood on the opposite side of the ring. Her voice cracked out of her throat in a whisper. Why him? Izuku sighed, softly, not annoyed. Not angry. Just accepting, like he'd predicted this weeks ago. He got up from his seat and stretched like it was any other fight. Guessed this was going to happen eventually. He didn't look scared. Didn't look guilty. Didn't look eager either. He simply smiled to himself, quiet, unreadable, and hopped down the bleacher steps, hands in his pockets. As he walked past her aisle, he didn't stop. He didn't make a scene, but he did tilt his head just enough for her to hear him. Hey, don't hold back. Nana's breath cracked. He meant it. Not as a taunt. Not as a threat. As a promise. He wouldn't hold back either. Midnight's voice boomed through the arena. Fighters of the first match to the arena floor. Nana's friends nudged her gently. Kirishima whispered, You can do this. Todoroki watched, silently studying both siblings. Bakugo snarled under his breath, This is going to be a mess. Nana forced herself to stand on unsteady legs. Her heart hammered like it wanted to escape her chest. She whispered to herself, I can't run. Not again. And followed Izuku into the sunlight of the arena. Transition. Up in the VIP box, the air went tight, thick enough to choke on. On the giant screen below, Izuku and Nana's names flashed again, bold and unmistakable. The crowd roared with excitement. But inside the reserved viewing room, it was dead silent. Then, what is the meaning of this? Tashinori Yagi slammed both hands on the railing so hard the metal bent. Golden suit wrinkled, face flushed red, one for all practically sparking behind his eyes. He looked one flicker away from jumping through the glass. Inko jumped to her feet too, trembling with anger and fear. This has to be a mistake, Nizu. This has to be a mistake. You can't make Nana fight him. You can't hill. She couldn't finish the sentence. Not out loud. Nizu, calmly sipping tea like he wasn't watching a family meltdown, set his cup down delicately. This is no mistake, he said cheerfully. The bracket is the bracket. Completely randomized. Fair and square. You expect me to believe that? Toshinori roared. Nizu smiled wider, dangerously. Oh, not at all. I don't expect you to believe anything you don't want to. But I do expect you to follow the rules of the festival. Toshinori's fist sparked, knuckles whitening. He is dangerous. You know what he's capable of. You've seen what he's done. Nizu steepled his paws. And I've also seen Nana's training. That's not the same. Inko snapped. Nizu continued as if she hadn't spoken. And I've seen Izuku's self-control, despite complicated circumstances. This is a test, Mrs. Yagi. For both of them. Toshinori shook with fury. You're putting my daughter in the ring with a boy wielding all-for-one Nizu, a vigilante who nearly killed a Nomu, a child who fought all might himself. How was this acceptable? Nizu's eyes gleamed like polished obsidian. Because Izuku requested it. That shut both parents up instantly. What? Inko whispered. Nizu folded his paws neatly. Yes. As a condition of attending UA. He insisted that he be treated equally, no special safety nets, no selective matchups, no coddling. If he and Nana cross paths, then they cross paths. Toshinori looked like someone had punched all the air out of him. Inko covered her mouth, tears brimming. And Nizu finished with a small, almost sad smile. He is not your little boy anymore. He's something else now. Something you didn't nurture, something you didn't guide, but something he became anyway. The stadium erupted as Izuku and Nana stepped into the arena. Nizu glanced at the lights, ears twitching. It seems the match is about to begin. Do sit down. The children worked very hard for this. Toshinori and Inko stared at the arena, horror and helplessness mixing on their faces. As their daughter finally faced the sun, they pushed away. Transition. The arena lights blazed down on them. Heat rising off the stone tiles as the crowd settled into a restless hush. All that noise, all that energy, yet between the two of them, there was only quiet. Izuku stood relaxed, hands in his pockets, posture loose and steady. Nana stood stiff as a board, fists trembling at her sides, breath shaky enough to hear. Two siblings, two paths, two very different reasons for being here. Izuku tilted his head, watching her with the cool patience of someone who already knew how this was going to go. He didn't feel hate right now. Not fury. Not bitterness. He'd burned through all of that a long time ago. What he felt was tired. Tired and almost disappointed. Nana wasn't like their parents. She wasn't cruel. Not calculating. Not malicious. She was just soft. Easily influenced. Easily pushed into believing whatever made her feel safe. Someone who folded instead of questioned. Izuku sighed under his breath, shoulders relaxing. His thoughts were blunt. She's not evil, just weak. And weakness got us here. Nana saw that sigh, and it shattered her. She swallowed, voice trembling so much it barely came out. Izuku. Izuku didn't flinch, didn't blink, barely reacted at all. Don't, he said quietly. Not here. Not now. Her eyes widened, hurt flashing across her face. She opened her mouth again, but nothing came out. The silence between them stretched like a chasm. Around them, the stadium murmured, some confused, some leaning in, some sensing the tension without knowing why. Present Mike, for once, didn't scream. Even he felt the weight. Midnight raised her whip, but for a brief moment her expression softened, as if she could feel the history simmering in the air. Nana wiped at her eyes, quickly trying to hide it, failing miserably. Izuku's gaze didn't budge, didn't soften, not cruel, not mocking, just unreadable. He finally spoke again, voice steady and level. You ready to fight, Nana? Her knees nearly buckled, but she forced herself to nod. She had to. She had to prove something to him, to herself, to that quirk burning in her chest. Midnight took a breath, sensing the tension rippling across the arena like electricity. Fighters! Nana braced herself. Izuku slipped one hand out of his pocket, palm glowing faintly. To your marks. Izuku exhaled once calmly. Begin. Whip. And the siblings finally moved. So, this was the end of part 2 of this series. Stay tuned for next part of this series, and if you like this video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Until next time.